Chapter 664. To prevent the cultivators of Shaoyang City from plundering, a nascent soul cultivator was stationed on this island. He also set up a transporting formation to Yuan Province to facilitate trading with Yuan Province. Originally, it would be safer to go to Shaoyang via Yuan Province, but according to the nascent soul cultivator stationed there, Yuan Province was currently in a fierce battle with the demon cultivators continent. Demon cultivators had completely occupied Yuan Province, so going to Yuan Province wasn't a good choice. The nascent soul cultivator stationed on the island was an early-stage cultivator with a lifespan of more than 1,000 years. He probably had no hope of advancing and didn't want to be involved in disputes, so he left Yunzhong and lived here. He was familiar with Ling Yunhe. Seeing that most of them were in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm and were in their prime, he was very envious. He also received spiritual plants from Mo Tiange, so he told them about the nearby situation and gave them a detailed sea map. With this detailed sea map and Nie Wusheng, who was familiar with the route, the 7 of them set out directly to Shaoyang City by sea. Along the way, sea beasts were everywhere. Most of them were in the 6th or 7th rank, and there were also some in the 8th or 9th rank, but they just stayed far away when they saw them. Mo Tiange looked at the numerous sea beasts under her feet and couldn't help but say, if we build a beast hunting island here, it might not be inferior to One Leaf Island. Fellow Daoist Mo is right. Ling Yunhe nodded in agreement. However, building an island here is too difficult and can't be completed in a short time. One Leaf Island had to operate for more than 100,000 years to reach its current scale. Moreover, it had to be backed by the continent to have something to rely on. If there's only one island floating in the sea, it'll probably be destroyed in one go if it's surrounded by the demon cultivators. Mo Tiange was stunned. Fellow Daoist Ling, you're really thoughtful. I took it for granted. Ling Yunhe smiled. Fellow Daoist Mo doesn't know, but the cultivators in Yunzhong have long considered this matter. It's just that time was too tight and the situation changed greatly, so it was delayed until now. It's not because of my unique vision. After flying smoothly for several days, Nie Wusheng was getting closer and closer to Shaoyang. Many islands already had traces of cultivators' activities. All of a sudden, she stopped on a deserted island. Fellow Daoist Nie, is there a problem? Qin, she asked. Nie Wusheng shook her head and said, there are so many nascent soul cultivators in our group. If we enter the range of Shaoyang's 3 islands, it'll inevitably cause a commotion. Moreover, the Qilan's aura appears at the periphery of Owl's sun, so it's best to stop here. Mo Tiange took out the map and compared it with the map. Their current location was very close to one of the points, so she said, what Wusheng said is reasonable. We don't need to go any further. Since they said so, the others didn't have any objections. They all took out the maps to study. The disciples of Gujian sect always found 3 points. Each of these 3 points was a sea area, and they were quite far away from each other. Their range was also quite large, and they surrounded the north of Fierce Sun in a ring shape. My disciples reported that there are often 8th-grade demonic cultivators in these 3 areas, so they couldn't investigate carefully. However, they're almost certain that they're in the vicinity of these 3 areas. Jing Xingji said, from what I can see, these 3 areas are quite large, and it will take a lot of effort to search. Why don't we split into 3 groups? It was indeed too wasteful for 7 nascent soul cultivators to search one area. Moreover, this place wasn't far from Fierce Sun Island, and there were only occasional 8th-rank demonic cultivators. Each of them was an outstanding cultivator, so why would they be afraid of this place? Everyone immediately agreed and began to discuss how to divide the spoils. Ling Yunhe was the first to speak. We'll split into 3 groups. We have 7 people. The strong ones will form a team of 2, and the weak ones will form a team of 3. Lord Daoist Lingxi took the initiative to step forward. Fellow Daoists are in the middle stage, but I'm still in the early stage, so I won't stand on ceremony. Next was Nie Wushang. I've just recovered from my serious injuries, so I won't force myself. Apart from them, the other 5 people didn't say anything. Mo Tiange had advanced to the middle stage more than 50 years ago, so her realm was stable and she had just refined a peerless magic weapon. Jing Xingji had Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance and the White Tiger's Pearl, so he was a bit stronger than Mo Tiange. Ling Yunhe had the Black Tortoise's inheritance and the Soul Restraining Pearl. Yang Qingji had the Heavenly Devil Tower, the most powerful of the 5 holy objects in Yunzhong. It really wasn't easy to tell which one of them was the weakest. Qin Shi thought for a while then said, Tinga, you're the one fellow Daoist Nye trusts the most. Why don't you go with junior martial brother Lingxi and fellow Daoist Nye? Mo Tiange nodded in agreement. Apart from the 2 of them, Lord Daoist Lingxi wasn't familiar with the others. If Qin Shi went with them, he wasn't familiar with Nie Wushang, so she was the best candidate. Qin Shi turned to the other 3 people and asked with a smile, which fellow Daoist wants to go with me? Under normal circumstances, it would naturally be Jing Xingji since the 2 of them were old partners. However, for the sake of average strength, he still asked. Before Jing Xingji could speak, Ling Yunhe smiled and said, I'd like to go with fellow Daoist. Qin Shi wasn't surprised and nodded. If there's no problem, then let's do it. Jing Xingji and Yang Qingji looked at each other and raised their eyebrows. It doesn't matter. After dividing into groups, the 3 groups each chose their own targets. Mo Tiange's group was naturally taken care of and was assigned to the closest one. Senior martial brother, wait. Before she left, Mo Tiange called out to Little Feng from her spiritual beast bracelet. Little Feng will go with you, okay? Qin Shi nodded and said softly, junior martial brother Lingxi's cultivation level is a bit weak, and fellow Daoist Nia has just recovered from her serious injuries. Your spiritual beasts are 8th rank, so it'll be safer if they go with you. Alright, I understand. After saying a few simple words, they called each other and flew away. Tiange, Nie Wushang called out while flying. What's wrong? Mo Tiange asked when she saw the doubt on her face. There's something I've been thinking about for several days. She frowned and said, the way Jing Xingji found the Qilin sacrificial temple was based on the location of the other 4 sacrificial temples, and this location was after the world changed. Why is it like this? Haven't these sacrificial temples been established for 1,000,000 years? Was today's world destined to become like this 1,000,000 years ago? We've thought about this, Mo Tiange said slowly. The reason why the world changed is related to our experiences in the Sea of Returning Ruins. You know this. Nie Wushang nodded. Mo Tiange went on to say, what did we trigger in the Sea of Returning Ruins to cause the world to change? The opening of the Immortal Palace in the Sea of Returning Ruins was full of all kinds of coincidences. As long as one condition wasn't met, it was very likely that it would never appear in the world again. To be honest, I don't think this result was foreseeable, so I think the world becoming like this today was just an accident. Moreover, how could the people or the gods from millions of years ago build a temple according to the result of the world becoming like this one day? Nie Wushang thought for a while and said, you mean, this world might have been like this from the beginning? Mo Tiange nodded gently. We speculate that this world was originally like this, but for some reason, it changed into its previous state. For example, several destructive catastrophes. Nie Wushang thought silently for a long time and said softly, it said that everything in the world has karma. The world has changed back to its original state, and we only hope it's peaceful in the distant past era. Mo Tiange didn't say anything. She also hoped that would be the case. She hoped they could smoothly find the Chilan sacrificial temple, find the truth of the big secret that Amber called, find the true face of that gambling house, and obtain the chips to win. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, this is the place, right? Lord Daoist Lingxi's voice came into her ears. Mo Tiange turned around and compared it with the map. It should be. This place was a relatively calm sea area, not far from the 3 islands of Shaoyang, so there weren't many sea beasts. Just now, they sensed an 8th-rank beast cultivator nearby, but when it discovered them, it also fled far away. Speaking of which, cultivators of Shaoyang were really strange existences. Whether it was Yunzhong, the Celestial Pole, or Yuan Province, if cultivators from the 3 continents lived in a place like Shaoyang, they would definitely do their best to catch beasts for their cultivation. But cultivators of Shaoyang didn't. They seemed to be accustomed to plundering for a living, and they would rather go to Yuan Province to rob than to catch beasts in the sea. As a result, the environment around the 3 islands of Shaoyang was still the same as before, and the number of sea beasts didn't decrease at all. Mo Tiange pressed her spiritual beast bracelet, releasing her 3 spiritual beasts and Stone, who was inseparable from Fei Fei. This wasn't her first time seeing this, but Nia Wushang still felt it was very spectacular. She clicked her tongue and praised, "Look at your posture. You're already very impressive even without fighting. Even cultivators of spiritual beast sect don't have so many 8th-rank spiritual beasts, right?" The cultivation technique cultivated by cultivators of spiritual beast sect was very special. Their natal spiritual beasts were always at the same cultivation level as their cultivators. When their cultivation level reached a high level, they could fight 2 against 1, which was quite advantageous. However, there was only 1 natal spiritual beast, and it was also very difficult to raise other spiritual beasts to the 8th rank or above. Even Hua Lingyun, the head of spiritual beast sect, only had 2 spiritual beasts above the 8th rank. "Wow, the sea!" Xiao Fan was the first to call out. Soon after, it looked at Mo Tiange with a longing gaze. "Master, can I go down?" Mo Tiange said, "Yes, I want you to go down. There's a Chilan's breath leaking out of this sea area. Go down and look for it." Xiao Fan didn't say a word of nonsense. It suddenly revealed its true form, turned into a blue sea dragon, and jumped into the water. "You guys too," Mo Tiange said to the other 2 spiritual beasts. Fei Fei curled its lips and didn't bother to ask anything. It just patted Stone's head and said, "Stone, let's go." Xiao Wu was a bit scared. "Master, let me do something else. Can I not go down?" She was a fire attribute spiritual beast, so she had a natural fear of the sea. "Okay." Mo Tiange pointed at her feet. "You stay here to support Xiaofan and Fei Fei." "Okay." Xiao Wu agreed without having to go down to the sea. After arranging several spiritual beasts, Mo Tiange turned around and called out, "Senior Marshal Brother Lingxi, should we go down and look for them?" "Okay." Lord Daoist Lingxi stretched out his finger and flicked it. A verdant lotus leaf appeared in front of him. It immediately turned into a green aura and wrapped his whole body. "I'll go first. Junior Marshal Sister and fellow Daoist Nya, be careful." After he finished speaking, he dove into the sea. "Wu Sheng, let's go too." And the 2 of them used their respective methods and dove into the sea. Chapter 665. He sank about 1,000 feet into the sea, and indeed, he could feel the weak aura of a Qilin. Mo Tiange stopped, closed her eyes, and put her palms together, silently operating her cultivation technique. Spiritual energy flowed out of his dantian, followed by the Qilin's breath. When the Qilin's breath filled his entire body, the aura of his kind around him became clearer. Mo Tiange opened her eyes and swam slowly along with the Qilin's breath. The Qilan's aura here was very strange. It was thin and indistinct, almost impossible to find. Even if she had the Qilan's aura, she couldn't sense where it came from. How could this be? Now that the Qilan's breath in her pursuit had stopped, Mo Tiange stopped and once again stimulated the Qilan's breath inside her body. But this time, it didn't last long before it disappeared. After thinking for a while, he still couldn't come up with a solution, so he decided to give up for the time being and swam upstream. Crash! Mo Tiange's head popped out of the water. With a flick of her sleeve, she shook off some water droplets, only to discover that Nie Wuxiang had already come up and was sitting cross-legged on the surface of the sea. "You're up here too." She raised her eyebrows. "This is strange. I need to think about it." Nie Wuxiang also didn't disturb her. The two of them just sat cross-legged, facing each other in silence. After a while, there was another splash and Dao Lord Lingxi's head popped out of the water. "The two of you came this morning." Dao Lord Lingxi flung the water droplets away and sat cross-legged a little further away. "I found the Qilan's aura, but it's just too odd. I can't touch it or grab it." "You're right, senior brother Lingxi. I also have Qilan's breath in my body, but I can't sense it. Could it be that this Qilan's breath is only here and the Qilan sacrificial temple isn't here? If it's not here, then where?" Nie Wuxiang said, "The azure dragon from the east, the vermilion bird from the south, the white tiger from the west, and the black tortoise from the north, all of them are in their respective positions, so Qilan should be in the center. Moreover, if the Qilan temple isn't here, then how do you explain the Qilan's aura here?" "Yes. Why did it turn out like this?" Mo Tiange muttered to herself. "Perhaps it's because the entrance to the Qilan sacrificial temple has been concealed." Dao Lord Lingxi suddenly said. Mo Tiange and Nie Wuxiang looked up at the same time. "What's wrong?" Seeing their expressions, Dao Lord Lingxi thought that she had said something wrong. "No." Mo Tiange smiled. "Senior Martial Brother Lingxi is absolutely right. We can't find it because it's covered up. This Qilan aura was leaked out earlier. If that's the case, are we still going to keep looking?" Nie Wuxiang asked. "Let's contact them first." Mo Tiange took some time to think, then said, "Let's see how they're doing and whether they're also in the same situation." Just as he took out the voice-transmitting talisman, Lil Fan popped its head out and shouted, "Master, there are sea beasts, a lot of sea beasts." "What?" The three of them were stunned. Yifan quickly swam over, followed by Xiaohua and Feifei. He said, "The flow of the sea isn't right, there are many sea beasts coming this way." "A lot." Mo Tiange was confused. She asked, "Where did they come from? What are you doing here?" "South, from the south." Yifan nudged her anxiously. "Let's go to the shore. There are thousands, no, tens of thousands of them, 10,000 sea beasts." Mo Tiange's face was a bit pale. If tens of thousands of sea beasts swarmed her, even if there weren't any 8th-ranked demonic beast cultivators, it would still be hard for her to deal with them. Besides, this was simply impossible since there were 8th-ranked demonic beasts in the vicinity. "Let's go!" Feifei shouted from behind, "Maybe they're sea beasts that came out to look for food, or maybe the demonic beasts on the demonic cultivator continent were driven away by demonic beasts. We can't stay in the water. Let's go." Lord Daoist Lingxi immediately stood up. "Let's hide on the shore and find a chance to meet up." Mo Tiange didn't hesitate. She activated the sound-transmitting talisman, then quickly summoned several spirit beasts, put them into the spiritual beast bracelet, and shot towards the nearest island. The other two teams obviously found out earlier than her. When she sent out the sound-transmitting talisman, they received Qin Shi's and Jing Xingji's voice messages one after another. Their messages were concise and comprehensive, expressing the same meaning: there are many sea beasts in the south. Hide quickly. When they set foot on the island, their divine senses had already found traces of many sea beasts. The three of them didn't say anything and found a cave. Tiange quickly took out a formation and laid it, concealing her breath and hiding inside. These sea beasts were getting closer and closer, and the buzzing sound lingered in their ears. Tiange silently calculated with her divine sense. Xiao Fan was right. There were at least tens of thousands of them. The lowest ones were in the 3rd or 4th rank, while the higher ones were in the 8th rank, 9th rank, and 10th rank. Where did they come from? Did they gather together to hunt for food? That shouldn't be possible, right? Or maybe they came from the demon cultivator continent. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were trampling over their heads. The ground was shaking and the waves were rolling. The three of them were not low-level cultivators with shallow experience, but this kind of movement still caused their faces to turn pale. The sea beasts rushed past them like a tide and didn't seem to pay much attention to them. The three of them relaxed a little, but in the next moment, an 8th-rank beast cultivator stopped above them, followed by 2 9th-rank beast cultivators. They held their breaths, feeling like a huge rock was hanging on their chests. Suddenly, they sensed that one of the beast cultivators made a move. The three of them didn't even have time to say anything and quickly flashed out of the cave. Boom! With a loud noise, the cave they were hiding in was smashed to pieces. As soon as they came out of the cave, they saw a dense mass of flying sea beasts above them. Tiange's heart sank. She pressed the spiritual beast bracelet and released all the spirit beasts. We can't hide anymore. Let's get to work. So many. Xiaohua exclaimed in surprise, feeling very guilty. Ever since she was a child, she had very few opportunities to fight. Tiange waved the heaven and earth fan, and a bolt of lightning smashed the 6th or 7th rank demonic beasts near her. She said in a deep voice, "There's nothing we can do even if there are so many of them. Since we can't hide, we can only fight our way out." She raised her head and looked at the more and more beast cultivators gathering not far away. Almost all of these beast cultivators were in their original forms, and their eyes were full of hostility. Tiange quietly released the puppets. She winked at the other two people and quickly rushed forward. It was definitely not a good idea to let the beast cultivators have time to gather. The faster they rushed out of the encirclement, the better. As long as they met with the other two groups, their chances of survival would be greatly increased. Seeing them rushing over, these beast cultivators were even more disgusted, but some were excited. They slightly changed their formation and assumed a fighting posture. They were actually beast cultivators who knew how to fight in groups. Nia Wushang's devil cloud was the first to be ready. She still had the habit of being a martial cultivator. She threw a heavy punch, and the devil cloud quickly attacked the beast cultivators. At the same time, Lord Daoist Lingxi waved her hand. Countless green flashed in the air and spread into a big green net. This big net gathered and suddenly turned into a towering ancient tree with a desolate ancient aura and endless vitality. In the face of them taking the initiative to attack, the demonic cultivators were on high alert, and they resisted the attacks of the demonic cultivators. Tiange saw a 10th-rank beast cultivator among them. He hadn't made a move yet and just watched coldly from the side. The other beast cultivators were in their original forms, but he was in his human form. His dark and thin appearance looked very familiar. When she saw the pair of wings on his back, Tiange shivered and cried out involuntarily, "It's you." The dark and thin beast cultivator's eyes were fixed on her, and his eyes narrowed ruthlessly. "So it's you. I didn't expect to see you again after we parted that year." He spoke in an unfamiliar human language with a strange accent. Surprisingly, He was the black beast cultivator who escaped from the returning ruined sea with them. When the returning ruined sea collapsed, 3 beast cultivators, black, white, and blue, escaped together. Mo Tiange and Yang Qingji triggered the nascent soul heavenly tribulation, but they triggered the transformation heavenly tribulation. After the heavenly tribulation, wind and rain intertwined, and the world changed. Yang Qingji escaped from the sea, and Mo Tiange, Qin Shi, and Jing Xingji went to Yuan province. The 3 beast cultivators were nowhere to be seen. It turned out they had become the leaders of the beast cultivators in the sea. Nie Wushang and Lord Daoist Lingxi looked at them in surprise. Nie Wushang said, "Tiange, how do you know this beast cultivator?" Mo Tiange waved her hand, indicating that they would talk later. She raised her voice and said, "So it's fellow Daoist Old Black. Fellow Daoist escaped after we parted in the returning ruined sea. Congratulations." The dark and thin beast cultivator laughed and said, "I have to thank you. If it weren't for you, we would have been trapped in the ice palace for the rest of our lives. How could we have left? How could we have the glory we have today? I wouldn't dare. It was just a coincidence." Mo Tiange paused for a moment, then raised her voice and asked, "Fellow Daoist Old Black, may I ask why you're doing this?" The dark and thin beast cultivator looked at her and said indifferently, "I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to know." His refusal was stiff and his eyes were ruthless, as if he wanted to attack her at any time. Mo Tiange didn't want to fight him right away. With so many beast cultivators, wouldn't she die of exhaustion? "You're right. It's useless for us to know about beast cultivators." The dark and thin beast cultivator narrowed his eyes. "This is the territory of beast cultivators. Why did you come here?" Mo Tiange paused for a moment, then said, "Fellow Daoist, you're wrong. The sea is the habitat of sea beasts like you, but there are also humans living on the island. How could it be the territory of beast cultivators?" "Humph." The dark and thin beast cultivator said in a bad tone, "Didn't you humans come to the sea to hunt beasts? You have a glib tongue, but you still can't change this fact." "Humph." Mo Tiange also snorted coldly. "Since when were you beast cultivators friendly to humans? Didn't you order low-level demonic beasts from time to time and use them, who haven't developed spiritual wisdom, to rob humans of their medicinal pills and magic weapons to pave the way for you to take human form? You beast cultivators weren't good at bickering." Mo Tiange's words rendered the dark and thin beast cultivator speechless. He wanted to say he took human form in the Immortal Palace in the returning ruined sea, but if he said that, it would seem like he admitted what she said. Just as Mo Tiange was about to say something to ease the situation and coexist with the beast cultivator, an earth-shattering strike suddenly came from the distance. The other 4 people had already fought with the beast cultivator. Old Black turned his head to look and instantly became furious. He shouted, "Kill them!" "Yes!" The beast cultivators around him responded in unison. They rubbed their fists and were about to pounce on Old Black. Mo Tiange groaned inwardly, but she had no choice but to shout, "Go!" Chapter 666. 3 people, 3 spirit beasts, and a puppet could barely be regarded as 7 nascent soul cultivators. As for the stone, Mo Tiange had already ignored it. Although the stone couldn't be affected by spells, it hadn't taken a human form, and it might never take a human form, so it was impossible for it to hurt these beast cultivators. On the other hand, after Lao He gave the order to kill, he glanced coldly at them, and then he led the demon cultivators away without any reluctance to leave. The low-grade sea beasts that dashed past in the surroundings didn't intend to stay either, and they flew forward as if they were nothing. More than a dozen beast cultivators were left behind, confronting them with swords drawn. Nie Wushang was the first to attack. She combined the two from a martial cultivator to a devil cultivator, and her fighting style was direct and fierce. The color of the devil cloud around her became darker and darker, like a drop of ink, and she rushed toward the beast cultivators. Boom! 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 Every punch carried the power to crack rocks and mountains, as well as a strange corrosive aura. The several beast cultivators who rushed in front were caught off guard and hit by her. They flew far away like kites with broken strings. Seeing this scene, the beast cultivators who didn't take them seriously became a little nervous. At the same time, 2 9th rank and 1 8th rank flew out, intending to surround Nia Wushang. Mo Tiange snorted and waved the heaven and earth fan. With a roar, an azure dragon appeared, spewing golden lightning, and pounced on one of the 9th rank beast cultivators, throwing him far away from Nia Wushang. The appearance of the azure dragon shocked the beast cultivator. Divine Sovereign. This is the breath of a divine sovereign. All the beast cultivators were panic-stricken. How could this human have the breath of a divine sovereign? Divine sovereigns had already disappeared in the human world. Could it be like what the Chilans in the Shumi Sea said, that the descendants of divine sovereigns had appeared? But what did this have to do with human cultivators? Or did her magic weapon come from killing divine sovereigns? Before they could figure it out, they suddenly saw the seawater around the small island boil and rushed to the other side. At this time, Yifan was in his human form. He was a young man with a calm face. His blue and gray clothes were fluttering in the fierce sea breeze. At first glance, he looked inconspicuous, but with a little attention, one would find that his whole body was filled with a kind of vast and sacred spiritual qi, which made his whole body as transparent as the purest water, clean and without any impurities. His eyes were tightly closed, and his palms were clasped together as he performed a hand seal. A ball of extremely pure, water-blue spiritual qi appeared between his fingers and gradually grew stronger. With the appearance of this ball of spiritual qi, the surrounding waves seemed to be controlled by a mysterious power. Even the water attribute demon cultivators among them could not absorb the water spiritual qi from it. When the spiritual qi had increased to a certain level, he opened his eyes and pointed a finger. A shadow that was the combination of a turtle and a snake suddenly appeared. It glanced coldly at the crowd of demon cultivators, and in an instant, a huge wave that was hundreds of feet high rose from the sea and slammed down on them. Crash! A huge force came crashing down, and most of the beast cultivators were so shocked that they forgot to move, and were knocked to the ground. However, it had not been long since Xiaofan advanced, so the black tortoise shadow she summoned wasn't very powerful. Moreover, it was shared equally by the crowd of demon cultivators, so it only made them uncomfortable for a while. However, the appearance of the black tortoise shadow made these demon cultivators go crazy. Black Tortoise Divine Sovereign. That's the Black Tortoise Divine Sovereign, a demon cultivator shouted. You're surprised just like that? Feifei snorted and revealed his true form. He was the first among the few spirit beasts to obtain a divine beast's aura. Moreover, what he obtained was a spirit beast's true form. He deliberately released it, and the white tiger's aura that surged all over his body was incomparably strong. Feifei was shrouded in golden light. In an instant, a white tiger shadow descended and overlapped with his true form. Ha! With a shout, the white tiger's shadow became clearer and clearer, and the white tiger's aura also became stronger and stronger. Suddenly, he flew forward, his 4 feet flat on the ground, and left a series of white tiger footprints in the air. With the white tiger's shadow around him, Feifei was like a copperhead with iron arms. He crashed into everything in his way without holding back. The demon cultivators with slightly lower cultivation were all sent flying by him. Although he was the last to advance to the 8th rank, his strength grew the fastest after he advanced to the 8th rank. At that moment, Xiaohua also revealed her true form. The vermilion bird's flames gushed out and burned. Compared to Xiaofan and Feifei who obtained the divine beast's aura directly, Xiaohua was a bit weaker. This was because her vermilion bird's aura came from Xiaofang, and she wasn't a descendant of the phoenix, so her bloodline evolution wasn't as thorough as Xiaofang's. But she had her advantages. She lived the longest in the virtual sky world, ate the most spiritual plants, and had the strongest body. These demon cultivators were already numb. First it was Azure Dragon, then it was Black Tortoise, then White Tiger and Vermilion Bird. How could there be so many divine sovereigns' auras? Who were these people in the end? Should they fight back? Their instinctive reverence for divine sovereigns made them unable to fight back without any scruples. Right at that moment, the distant horizon suddenly lit up. The blue sky and white clouds contrasted with the flames, making them look particularly distinct. A phoenix cry came from afar. Phoenix, a demon cultivator, cried out involuntarily as he watched the approaching firebird. All the demon cultivators' gazes turned in that direction. Xiaofang. Mo Tiange watched as Xiaofang leisurely flew closer and stared at these demon cultivators with a proud and indifferent gaze. Although she was only in the 8th rank and among these demon cultivators, 9th rank demon cultivators weren't rare, under her gaze, the demon cultivators couldn't help but look at her in awe. After a moment of silence, a demon cultivator summoned his courage and asked, "May I ask if your Lord Divine Sovereign?" With flames dancing around her, Xiaofeng's entire body was filled with a noble and sacred aura. She answered faintly, "I'm a descendant of a divine sovereign." Divine sovereign. It's really a divine sovereign. The demon cultivators instantly became restless. Calm down. Calm down. Some demon cultivators shouted, "There are descendants of divine sovereigns in this world. What's so strange about that? If they're really divine sovereigns, why would they be with humans and become enemies with us demon cultivators? Divine sovereigns are ours, not humans." Upon hearing this, the commotion among the demon cultivators quickly subsided, and they began to whisper to each other. But this kind of aura. Why isn't it a divine sovereign? We demon cultivators have a natural instinct. It's impossible for us to mistake a divine sovereign. That's true, but what Big Brother Wu said makes sense. How could a divine sovereign ignore us and stand on the human side? That's right. In my opinion, these humans use some unknown method to steal the aura left behind by a divine sovereign. That's why, impossible. If there's really a divine sovereign aura left behind, why didn't we demon cultivators know about it and let the humans take advantage of it? They don't have 1 or 2 types of divine sovereign aura, but 4. What's the reason for such a coincidence? If it's not a coincidence, it means that they're scheming and harboring evil intentions. Could it be that they're from Shumisi? Shumisi's sovereign bloodline claims to be the descendants of divine sovereign Qilin. With them, doesn't that make all the 5 spiritual divine sovereigns? So that's how it is. This time, Shumisi instigated a war with the Sea clan because they have ulterior motives. Then what's with these divine sovereign auras? What's with this Lord Divine Sovereign? This can't be faked. The dozen or so demon cultivators couldn't keep calm anymore. As soon as Little Feng appeared, they started to quarrel among themselves. Lord Daoist Lingxi looked at them in surprise and whispered, "Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, look, since Little Feng came, it means Senior Marshal Brother is safe," Mo Tiange replied. "It's best if these demon cultivators are in a mess without fighting. Fellow Daoist Lao He, their leader, isn't easy to deal with. Back then, he had 2 companions who came out of the Sea of Immortals with us. One of them had a cultivation level not lower than his. Since Lao He has advanced to the 10th rank, I'm afraid that person is also." Mo Tiange paused and continued, "It turns out they invaded south because they got into trouble with Shumisi. Now I have an idea. She turned her wrist, and a palm-sized, glowing shell appeared in her hand. The shell seemed to have endless spiritual aura and some mysterious spells. Tiange picked it up and blew it gently. A wonderful whining sound that seemed to come from the depths of the soul spread throughout the whole sea area. As soon as this sound was heard, the demon cultivators stopped arguing. After a long time, a demon cultivator shouted, "They really are from Shumi Sea." As soon as he said that, the demon cultivators, no longer afraid of little Feng, the descendant of a divine lord, swarmed over. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei. Lord Daoist Lingxi didn't know what to say about this change. "We'll have to fight sooner or later. Let's kill them first." After saying that, she used the great heavenly thunder spell, and a lightning net fell from the sky. In an instant, the island was in chaos as humans and demons fought fiercely. At the edge of the South Sea, tens of thousands of Sea Clan troops were ready for battle. The leader was Xian Miao, the third princess of the South Sea. She no longer looked like Jin Jing in the Six Dao Palace. She was a 17 or 18-year-old girl wearing a blue palace dress and a Qilin horn on her forehead. She looked mysterious, noble, and aloof. Not far from her were Xian Ri and Xian Yu, and behind her were Diei and Ni Qi. Jing Hu, Jing Tao, and other 10th-rank demon cultivators were further away, commanding the Sea Clan troops. Report. From afar, an 8th-rank demon cultivator flew over and knelt on one knee in front of Xian Miao. "Third princess, the returning Ruined Sea's army is 1 day away." Xian Miao narrowed her eyes and asked in a deep voice, "How many are above 8th rank?" "Third princess, according to the scouts, there are 9 10th rank, more than 29th rank, and about 50 to 68th rank." Hearing this number, Diei behind Xian Miao said softly, "More than half of the returning Ruined Sea's high-level demon cultivators are here. It seems they're determined to teach us a lesson this time." Xian Miao laughed mockingly. "They want to teach us a lesson this way. The returning Ruined Sea is looking down on us too much. We don't have fewer high-level demon cultivators than them, but they're still waiting for us to exhaust ourselves. They're really not smart enough." "Of course." Diei's expression was cold, but her words were respectful. "They're just ordinary demon cultivators. How can they compare to the noble bloodline of the sovereign? Besides, third princess is a real divine lord now." Xian Miao was smiling, but her smile suddenly froze and she took out a shell from her bosom. This shell glowed and was surrounded by spirit energy. At this moment, it vibrated inexplicably and gave off a humming sound. Report. Another 8th-rank demon cultivator flew over and knelt in front of Xian Miao. "Third princess, a group of humans has stalled about half of the demon cultivators. They have the aura of the other 4 spirits. The returning Ruined Sea's army has stopped ahead. It's them." Third princess pondered for a moment and raised her hand. "Send my order, the army is to move out and attack the enemy." Chapter 667. A towering ancient tree appeared in midair as if it was real. Lord Daoist Lingxi stepped out of it, his eyes emotionless. He stretched out his hand and waved it gently. An ancient tree suddenly fell down, blocking a beast cultivator's giant waves technique. There were more and more beast cultivators around them. At first, the sea beast army only sent these beast cultivators to stop them, and the sea beasts went forward as usual. Later, because they couldn't kill them and were stalled by them, many beast cultivators turned back, wanting to kill them all. Their side was in a good situation, there weren't many reinforcements. On Qin Shi and Jing Xingji's side, many beast cultivators rushed towards them. Tiange was a little anxious and regretted taking out the token of Shumi Si just now. How could these beast cultivators recognize the token of the sovereign of Shumi Si? When she found out these beast cultivators had discord with Shumi C, she wanted to use the token the third princess gave her to call for help, but she didn't expect these beast cultivators to be so familiar with Shumi C that they even recognized this kind of token. In other words, Shumi C and returning Ruin C had been fighting for a long time. The nascent soul cultivator guarding the island only said the sea wasn't calm and there were beast cultivators coming and going from time to time, but he didn't know the relationship between the two seas had reached this point. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei. Lord Daoist Lingxi's voice rang in her ears. Let's meet up with Senior Marshal Brother Shoujing as soon as possible. Hearing this, Mo Tiange immediately calmed down. Fluctuating emotions had no effect on breaking out of the encirclement. Besides, what was the use of temporarily delaying them? Qin Shi, Jing Xingji, and the others had already started fighting. If the beast cultivators saw them, they wouldn't let them go. You guys go in front, I'll cover. Although they had a lot of people, their strength wasn't equal. The 4 spirit beasts were all in the 8th rank. They cultivated slowly, so their strength didn't grow fast. Lord Daoist Lingxi's strength wasn't bad, but he was still in the early stage. Madam, don't worry, Xiaofeng said, Master can still hold on for the time being. I understand. Let's go, don't delay. She turned her gaze. Wushang, you and Senior Marshal Brother Lingxi go in front. Nia Wushang didn't say anything. She nodded and punched the 8th rank beast cultivator in front, tearing their formation apart. Dao Lord Lingxi followed closely behind. He had a gentle personality and cultivated a wood attribute cultivation technique. However, his combat style was straightforward and even a little violent. Even if a level 9 demonic cultivator stood in front of him, he would still attack with all his might even at the risk of both sides being injured. These beast cultivators didn't dare to fight with all because they were frightened at first and didn't dare to fight with all they had. Seeing them trying to escape, the beast cultivators stirred and formed a formation they didn't dare to fight with. Liamo, and an eye, and they saw. And. Bye-bye, dares they as, they, and, and. However, the box suddenly stopped halfway and opened. The few demon cultivators were startled. Instinctively, they struck first to gain the upper hand, striking at the box. Unexpectedly, when the box was opened, it was empty. There was only a mysterious aura that seemed to contain all things. No matter what it was, it could be thrown into the box, but it also seemed to be able to destroy all things. Anything that came into contact with it would disappear. With a chi sound, the black longsword and the spikes on the box seemed to have hit something. They melted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ah! The beast cultivators controlling the 2 magic weapons screamed as if they were seriously injured. What's this? 2 natal magic weapons were melted and destroyed in just one encounter. It was too terrifying. Natal magic weapons were connected to their masters' minds. If the magic weapons were destroyed, their masters would be injured. Not only would they die on the spot, but their cultivation levels would also drop. For a moment, the beast cultivators were afraid to run away. If their magic weapons were only injured, they could slowly recover, but why did they melt directly? Could they refine them again? Or could they not be saved? As soon as the chaotic heavenly box appeared, it stunned them. Mo Tiange took the opportunity to shout, "Go!" Without hesitation, Nia Wushang turned into an escape light and flew away, followed by Lord Daoist Lingxi and the 4 spirit beasts. When they all got out of the encirclement, Mo Tiange also fled. Fearing the chaotic heavenly box, the beast cultivators didn't dare to stop her and just surrounded her from a distance. Right at that moment, a white escape light flew over. The white escape light was extremely fast. In a flash, it arrived in front of her. Tiange's speed was hindered by many beast cultivators, so she was soon blocked. When the escape light dissipated, a woman in white stood in the air and looked at Tiange calmly. "Fellow Daoist, how have you been?" Tiange was stunned. "You are... What? Don't you recognize me?" The woman in white smiled. Compared to the beast cultivators around her, her transformation was very perfect. Not only did she not look like a beast, but she was also dignified and elegant, surpassing many human women. "You're right. When we first met, I hadn't experienced heavenly tribulation, so I didn't know how to transform, so it was inevitable that I was a bit ugly." She smiled, making people feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze, but her hands were faintly flashing with lightning. A figure emerged in Tiange's mind, and she said slowly, "Your fellow Daoist old Bai." The woman in white nodded with a smile. "I'm Bailing. How should I address you?" "My surname is Mo, and my Daoist name is Qingwei." Tiange wasn't in the mood to chat with her, so she went straight to the point. "Fellow Daoist Bai, why are you blocking my way?" "Do you have to ask fellow Daoist Mo?" Bailing's gaze swept over the chaotic heavenly box floating in front of her, and fear flashed in her eyes. "As a human, what are you doing in my sea race's territory?" Upon hearing this, Tiange couldn't help but smile mockingly. Fellow Daoist Bai's words are strange. The sea race lives in the sea, but the islands in the sea are inhabited by humans. Since ancient times, humans have lived on the islands. When did the sea race become your sea race's territory? Besides, I haven't seen you beast cultivators leave the continent, so why can't you let humans set foot on the sea? Bailing frowned, but in the next moment, the great 10th-ranked beast's momentum suddenly pressed down. "So you're saying you don't want to leave?" Tiange said faintly, "We have no intention of getting involved in the sea race's dispute. We came here for an important matter, and once we're done, we'll leave. But if you force us to leave, it won't be easy." Who knew whether all the clues here would be erased after the battle between the returning Ruined Sea and the Shumi Sea? It wasn't easy for them to find this place, so they definitely wouldn't give it up easily. If they really had to face hundreds of beast cultivators in the returning Ruined Sea, they might temporarily leave because they weren't strong enough. However, the information revealed by these beast cultivators was enough to prove that they were fighting with the Shumi Sea. If she could borrow the Shumi Sea's power, she wouldn't be polite. Besides, would these beast cultivators really let them go? Probably not. If they took advantage of their absence and attacked them from behind, wouldn't they be in a passive position? Do something. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across Bailing's face, and she asked in a deep voice, "Is it to steal the Divine Lord's breath?" Tiange was stunned, but her face remained calm. "Fellow Daoist Bailing, why do you say that?" Bailing snorted. "Your Excellency, why do you think we have endless disputes with the Shumi Sea? It's because they claim to be the descendants of Divine Lord Qilin and want to steal the Divine Lord's breath in our sea area." Tiange was shocked. It turned out the beast cultivators had long noticed the Qilin's breath here. Thinking about it carefully, she found it was right. The Qilin's breath was scattered in the sea, so how could the sea beasts not know about it? In this case, if they wanted to enter the Qilin sacrificial temple, wouldn't they have to fight with the beast cultivators in the returning Ruined Sea and the Shumi Sea? In the Six Paths Palace, Hoopa once told the three mystical Qilins to help them find that secret if they needed it in the future. The Qilin sacrificial temple was related to this matter, and they didn't want to fight for the Qilin's breath, so they probably wouldn't turn against them. When the time came, they could just cooperate with them. With this thought, Tiange made up her mind and said calmly, fellow Daoist Bailing, I don't want to meddle in the affairs of your sea clans. However, after hearing what you said, I inevitably have a question. Can you answer it? Bailing raised her eyebrows. Fellow Daoist, if you have something to say, just say it. I'm afraid you won't have a chance in a while. Tiange cupped her hands, then asked in a rather humble tone, I remember that several dozen years ago, this place wasn't the sea region but Yunzhong. The south of Yunzhong was the Sea of Returning Ruins, and the north of Yunzhong was the Shumi Sea. Yunzhong is no longer here now, but this place can't be considered the Shumi Sea or the Returning Ruins Sea, right? Bailing narrowed its eyes and said fiercely, Fellow Daoist, do you think the Divine Lord's breath in this place belongs to you humans? I don't dare. Tiange suddenly put her palms together, and a divine, mighty breath burst out from her body. The expressions of Bailing and the beast cultivators around them suddenly changed. This is Divine Lord Qilin. Tiange smiled and put down her hands. Lord Daoist Bailing, to be honest, my breath is a gift from a senior Divine Lord. For us humans, the Divine Lord's breath is indeed very powerful, but it can't change our physiques and evolve into a higher bloodline like you can. For me, the Qilin's breath is enough. I'm not interested in what you guys are fighting over. Hearing what she said, Bailing didn't say anything for a long time. This group of people was indeed difficult to deal with. They originally planned to kill them in one go, but they didn't expect that they still couldn't kill them until now. Instead, most of the 8th rank beast cultivators were stalled, which would be fatal for their upcoming decisive battle. Therefore, the army stopped and planned to kill these humans in one go. But if that was the case, it seemed that they didn't have a reason to be enemies. Don't believe her. Many beast cultivators stared at Tiange with hostility. One of them shouted, humans are the most cunning. Besides, she just disabled Changba and Old Shrimp. We can't let her go. As soon as the beast cultivator finished speaking, someone immediately echoed, yes, we can't let her go. Her magic weapon is so terrifying. What if we sneak attack from behind? The crowd was so angry that Bailing didn't know what to say for a while. She sighed and spread her hands. Lightning formed a ball with flowing light and a mysterious breath. Sorry, we can't trust humans. Chapter 668. Tiange sighed inwardly. She didn't expect the beast cultivators to let her go on their own. She only hoped to move Whitey with her words and buy some time for Qin Shi and the others to meet up and come to save her. Now it seemed she didn't succeed. Just now, they had 7 nascent soul cultivators and a puppet, so they could deal with those beast cultivators. Now, she was the only one left. Even with the chaotic heaven transformation box, it would be difficult for her to face the siege of more than 10 beast cultivators, not to mention a 10th rank beast cultivator. The only thing she could do now was to kill her way out. She would do her best and leave the rest to heaven. If she really died here, it would be because she didn't have enough opportunities in this life to become an immortal. In her next life, she would come again. In an instant, she made up her mind, and her whole body emitted a piercingly cold killing intent. This killing intent made Whitey look at her. She originally didn't take human beings seriously, even if this human was the only person in the world who had gone through the nascent soul heavenly tribulation. She was an ancient beast cultivator who lived in the distant past space. In ancient times, nascent soul heavenly tribulation was very common. In her eyes, this human cultivator was just an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. However, this killing intent and that strange magic weapon made her feel that this human wasn't easy to deal with. Tiange shook her sleeves, and an abundant spiritual aura filled her body. The chaotic heaven transformation box had disappeared. In front of Whitey, the lightning ball was white, then cyan, then purple, and finally golden. In just a short time, it directly evolved from white lightning to golden lightning. Seeing this scene, Tianga's pupils shrank slightly. She also played with thunder spells, so how could she not know how rare golden lightning was? Except for herself, she hadn't seen anyone successfully cultivate golden lightning. Besides, she took advantage of the lightning from the heavenly tribulation. Otherwise, even if she practiced the great heavenly thunder spell, she might never see golden lightning in her life. That year in the Sea of Returning Ruins, the thunder spell this fellow Daoist by cast wasn't golden lightning, right? Did she hide her strength or did she cultivate it later? Or was it cut from the heavenly tribulation like her? Either way, it wouldn't be easy to deal with. Waving the heaven and earth fan, the azure dragon holding lightning was the first to attack. Bai Ling sneered. She waved her sleeves and the thunderball in front of her flew out. The method of refining the heaven and earth fan was to integrate formations into tools and use formations to control tools. In order to cooperate with the cultivation technique Tianga cultivated, the materials used were all of the 5 elements. It wasn't like ordinary magic weapons that focused on one of the 5 elements. Therefore, objects of the 5 elements could be transformed from it. However, because of the limitation of her cultivation level, at first, the heaven and earth fan could only summon some flowers, birds, and phantoms of mountains and rivers. Later, when her cultivation level was higher and she nurtured it, it could summon the killing moves of the 5 elements. When her heavenly tribulation to form her nascent soul awakened the breath of the azure dragon, she could summon the shadow of the azure dragon. The azure dragon's shadow was different from Qin Shi's vermilion bird bow and Jing Xingji's white tiger slash. It was just that the 2 of them cultivated killing moves, so they had more destructive power than hers. The azure dragon's shadow, on the other hand, mainly focused on defense and protection, so it was relatively gentle. However, this did not mean that the shadow of the azure dragon could not attack. It had its own unique attack method. The 2 kinds of golden thunderbolts collided. Bai Ling's golden thunderbolt was more powerful. With a puff sound, it was about to swallow Tianga's small golden thunderbolt. Bai Ling smiled and looked at Tianga leisurely. I don't know where fellow Daoist cultivated the golden thunderbolt, but I'm afraid fellow Daoist hasn't cultivated it to perfection. Before she could finish speaking, she suddenly heard a loud roar. The azure dragon, which was holding the golden thunderbolt in its mouth, bit a piece of Bai Ling's golden thunderbolt and swallowed it in one gulp. Bai Ling's expression suddenly changed. Tianga couldn't help but laugh. Sorry, my great heavenly thunder spell isn't perfect, but the azure dragon's breath isn't fake. Bai Ling's eyes were fierce. She no longer talked to Tianga. She made a hand seal and silently operated the art to manipulate the golden thunderbolt. The pressure on Tianga suddenly increased. A great 10th rank monster wasn't fake. Moreover, this was a monster cultivator from the distant past era. However, she could only clench her teeth and hold on. There were more than 10 monster cultivators around her. Once she showed signs of being defeated, they would rush to her. Moreover, there was only a puppet guarding her. Bai Ling's advantage was her cultivation level. She had the strength of a 10th rank monster, so the golden thunderbolt she could manipulate was stronger than Tianga's. But she also had an advantage. In addition to the golden thunderbolt, she also had the azure dragon. The golden thunderbolt was dead, but the azure dragon was alive. She closed her eyes. The heaven and earth fan floated in front of her. She silently mobilized the azure dragon's breath in the fan and slowly stimulated the azure dragon's shadow. Humph. Bai Ling seemed to feel the azure dragon was slowly becoming stronger. She snorted coldly and suddenly turned into 3 golden rays, shooting them towards Tianga. Tianga opened her eyes and stared coldly at Bai Ling. This was bullying her because her cultivation level wasn't high enough and she couldn't be distracted during the wrestling. The golden rays arrived in an instant. The puppet beside her suddenly took a step forward and slashed down with the Fushing sword. Chi, 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 the golden rays hit the Fushing sword and were all blocked. The puppet, however, suddenly lost its strength and fell down. Bai Ling chuckled. You don't even have a helper now. There are so many beast cultivators here. Can you beat them? Mo Tiange snorted but didn't answer. It seemed she didn't care at all. In fact, her heart was extremely heavy. There were more than 10 beast cultivators and one of them was a 10th rank great beast. How could she escape the encirclement by herself? She couldn't help but look into the distance. Unfortunately, she didn't see the flight light flying towards her. Bai Ling noticed it and her smile became even sweeter. Is that your husband? Unfortunately, he can't come. Old He is over there. It's good enough that he can protect himself. Ha! Mo Tiange showed an extremely confident smile. Protect myself. Fellow Daoist Bite seems to think too highly of you beast cultivators. You're fighting with the Sea of Returning Ruins, right? I'm afraid that when the time comes, the 8th rank and above beast cultivators will suffer heavy losses and won't be able to fight anymore. Naive. Bai Ling felt ridiculous. Just as she was about to mock her, her smile suddenly stopped and she showed an extremely surprised expression. You? Behind her, an ice crystal-like box appeared silently, and an invisible aura wrapped around her arm. The aura of the primal chaos was invisible and invisible. Bai Ling had been guarding against the chaotic heavenly box for a long time, but she didn't expect this magic weapon to be so terrifying. With a pained expression, she waved her hand and chopped off her right arm. Then, she moved in a flash. As soon as she moved, the golden lightning, which was no longer under her control, was swallowed by Azure Dragon. Puff! Bai Ling spat out a mouthful of blood and glared at Mo Tiange. Naive? Fellow Daoist Bai, are you talking about yourself? Azure Dragon returned to the Heaven and Earth fan. Holding the chaotic heavenly box, Mo Tiange glanced at Bai Ling contemptuously. Blood dripped down, and she almost couldn't control herself from showing her true form. Bai Ling took a deep breath and laughed at herself. All day long, I'll be pecked by the wild goose. I underestimated the cultivators nowadays. I thought I could laugh proudly in the human world just because I was an ancient beast cultivator. I didn't expect there were also talented cultivators with amazing fated chances in the human world. She wiped off the blood on her severed arm, and the wound grew back at a speed visible to the naked eye. She asked, fellow Daoist, what kind of magic weapon is this? I've been on guard against it, but why didn't I feel it at all? Mo Tiange shook her head. I'm sorry, I can't answer this question. Bai Ling just asked casually. Whether it was human cultivators or beast cultivators, they wouldn't casually tell others about their magic weapons. She sighed. I originally wanted to give fellow Daoist a quick death, but unfortunately, fellow Daoist is too capable. She waved her hand and said faintly, kill her. Although her physical injuries weren't a problem, the golden lightning she cultivated for many years was swallowed by Azure Dragon, so she was seriously injured. Facing more than 10 beast cultivators, Mo Tiange's eyes were piercingly cold. She wasn't afraid at all. At this time, fear had no effect, it would only speed up her own death. Azure Dragon appeared again. After swallowing Bai Ling's golden lightning, its strength had greatly increased. Upon realizing this, Mo Tiange even wanted to thank Bai Ling. Aside from heavenly tribulation, golden lightning was almost nowhere to be found. She could only rely on herself to cultivate bit by bit. Bai Ling's golden lightning had been cultivated for many years, so it was much stronger than hers. The beast cultivators were already approaching. Emo Tiange waved her sleeves, and Azure Dragon continuously spat golden lightning, which turned into a lightning pillar and smashed down, turning the area several miles around them into a world of lightning. Emo Tiange's silhouette was reflected in the lightning. Her sleeves fluttered like a phantom, but her voice was clearly heard. Everyone, if you want to take my life, you'll have to gamble with your own lives. Qin Shi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He instinctively turned his head and saw a sea of golden lightning suddenly appearing in the sea breeze not far away. Tiange. His face was pale. He spread his sword formation and rushed over there. Jing Xingji, who had already met up with them, shouted, "What are you doing?" "Tiange, it's dangerous." He only uttered these 3 words before he rushed over. When the beast cultivators in front of him blocked his way, he attacked without hesitation. A vast sea of swords pressed down. No matter what kind of magic weapon or spell it was, it couldn't withstand its sharpness. A pitch-black, 2-winged beast cultivator blocked his way, and a huge swamp quietly appeared. Qin Shi took a deep breath and calmed himself down. This was a 10th rank beast cultivator. If he wanted to break through his obstruction, he had to go all out. The sword formation around him changed. 8 became 4, 4 became 2, 2 became 1. In an instant, thousands upon thousands of sword lights merged into a sword that was burning with flames and had a vague flickering shadow of a vermilion bird. When he was in the foundation building realm, the 3-yang real fire sword was only a powerful flying sword. After he formed his gold core, the 3-yang real fire sword could turn into a sword formation and seize people with its momentum. When he was in the nascent soul realm, he could refine the sword formation into one sword again. This sword gathered the sword formation's power and formed an overwhelming momentum. The 3-yang real fire sword slashed diagonally, directly aiming at Old Black, regardless of the swamp under his feet. It was a sword without any fancy moves, but it had an irresistible momentum. Under this kind of momentum, Old Black didn't dare to underestimate it. The swamp instantly rose and covered the sword light. Roar, with a sharp and clear sound, a white tiger suddenly appeared and pounced on Old Black. Jing Xingji raised his sword and stood in front of it. "Go!" Qin Shi was stunned, but he soon nodded. "Thank you." He put away the 3-yang real fire sword then flew towards Emo Tiange. At that moment, on a white cloud very close to them, 2 young men were either sitting or lying down. One of them was wearing a dark blue Daoist robe embroidered with gold and had handsome features, while the other was wearing a simple white robe and looked delicate and otherworldly. The battle below was extremely lively, but they were lazily playing chess, only glancing at each other from time to time. "Phew," the blue-robed young man covered his mouth and yawned. "Aling, aren't you going to help?" Chapter 669. The white-clothed youth raised his eyelids, but his expression remained unchanged. "What help? You can't even defeat such a small number of beast cultivators. You deserve to die. More than a dozen. It's not that small." Ingrid yawned again. He casually put down a chess piece and rubbed a cloud to use as a chair. "This girl is really good. She actually found this place by herself. Alas, thinking back, why was our cultivation path so boring?" "That's you, not me," Zhong Muling said bluntly. "My cultivation path was very exciting. Only you didn't go out many times until you reached the deification realm." Hey, I went out many times, then you were just watching the show with other people, right?" Zhong Muling put down a white chess piece and instantly ate a large number of black chess pieces. He knocked on the chessboard. "I ate your dragon. Do you still want to continue?" "Ha!" Ingrid glanced at the chessboard and scratched his head. "Didn't I do something just now?" Zhong Muling grunted but didn't answer. Forget it, I admit defeat. Ingot quickly shook off his doubts and threw in the chess piece. He looked down and said with interest, "Oh, isn't this the boy who ate the Yang spiritual bead? He's also in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Oh, he's about to break through to the late stage. Not bad, not bad. This speed is much faster than yours back then. He's only a little bit slower than me. He's worthy to be your great-great-grandson-in-law." After talking for a long time, Zhong Muling still remained indifferent. Ingot couldn't help but say, "Aling, you really don't want to save her." Zhong Muling looked down at the large area of lightning. After a long time, he finally said, "The path of the deification realm doesn't allow other people to interfere. If I interfere, I'll ruin her path. But what if she dies?" Zhong Muling said indifferently, "Once you step on the path of immortality, you have to face death at any time. It's not the first time she knows this. Since she chose this path, she has to face everything by herself. It's not that serious, right?" Ingot was deeply puzzled. Why did he always feel like he didn't cultivate the same path as these people? Cultivation, realm advancement, cultivation, realm advancement, wasn't that the same thing? Did he have to watch her die to have his own path? Zhong Muling gently shook his head. "People like you who live a smooth life won't understand how difficult our path to immortality is, even if you've heard about it. Soul formation cultivators were a power that should not exist in this world, so they were not allowed to interfere in the affairs of the human world. Back then, no matter how many treasures I bestowed upon her, it was only out of love for the younger generation. However, if I were to make a move to save her, she would have to bear this karma herself. She couldn't bear the karma of a deification cultivator. Rather than saving her this time only to have her lose her hope of reaching deification, she might as well resign herself to fate. I think, with her personality, she would rather die like this than not be able to reach the soul formation stage in this life." He shifted his gaze and smirked. "Besides, she might not die." Bathed in lightning, Mo Tiange stared coldly at the beast cultivators rushing towards her. The chaotic heaven transformation box was already hidden in the lightning, waiting for an opportunity to strike. This was a hopeless situation, but until the very end, there was still a chance of survival. She knew that under normal circumstances, if she was besieged by more than 10 beast cultivators of the same realm as her, it would be impossible for her to escape unless she made a prompt decision to abandon her body and escape with her nascent soul. However, the existence of the chaotic heaven transformation box and the sudden surge of golden lightning gave her another option. The shell in her bosom was buzzing and vibrating as if it sensed that another shell was not far away. This kind of wonderful feeling was transmitted to the person who had it. A faint smile appeared on Mo Tiange's face. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a beast cultivator who was walking into the golden lightning shower. An ice crystal-like box silently appeared beside him, and a faint aura came out. "Ah!" A miserable scream rang out. This time, it was half of the beast cultivator's body that was melted. There was no blood, no scars, only half of the melted body remained. If it weren't for this beast cultivator's prompt decision and Whitey's sharp eyes and quick hands, perhaps even his primordial spirit wouldn't have been able to escape. This change made all the beast cultivators hesitate and stop. They knew this human cultivator had a terrifying magic weapon, but they didn't know it was this terrifying. Behind them, Whitey was exasperated. No matter how powerful she is, she's just a middle-stage, nascent soul cultivator. Among you, not to mention the 8th rank, there are so many 9th rank cultivators in the same realm as her. Are you all scared by her? Her golden lightning won't last for long. Just attack more and consume her. Her magic weapon is invisible and intangible. No matter how far you hide, you may be killed. It's better to kill her as soon as possible to ensure your own lives. This encouragement was very successful. Several bold beast cultivators gritted their teeth, took out their magic weapons and attacked. Others seemed to wake up from a dream and understood that they didn't have to attack inside. They could attack from outside to consume her golden lightning. Immediately, magic weapons were taken out and spells were cast everywhere. Tienge groaned as she was hit by many magic weapons and spells. She felt her primordial spirit was injured and was in great pain. But she could only endure it. She had nowhere to retreat. Even if she fled now, she would be killed by so many beast cultivators in an instant. She was only one person. Once she lost her golden lightning, she wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of so many beast cultivators. At this time, she couldn't help but feel lucky that she had experienced the 5 spirits cultivation body and the heavenly lightning tempering body. Because of this, her endurance was greatly improved and she could stand until now. In pain, the chaotic heaven transformation box continued to attack. Another Yao cultivator fell. They wanted to defend themselves, but they were unable to do so. The rest of the Yao cultivators all displayed their own defensive techniques and stared at the figure in the golden lightning with vigilance. This instantly alleviated the pressure on her. The defensive methods of beast cultivators above the 8th rank. This seems a bit difficult. Tienge observed silently for a while, then stealthily manipulated the chaotic heaven transformation box to sneak towards a beast cultivator whose defense wasn't very tight. The color of the eyes flashed. The box was opened, and primal chaos aura escaped silently. The beast cultivator immediately realized something was wrong. He flapped his wings and flew away instantly. In the blink of an eye, the defensive magic weapon on his body melted, and a wound appeared on his right wing. This was the terrifying part of the chaotic heaven transformation box. It could directly melt the body and make them lose the ability to heal. Seeing the wound, the beast cultivator gasped. It was actually so terrifying. If he hadn't moved fast enough just now, wouldn't he have ended up like that beast cultivator with only his primordial spirit left? See? Her magic weapon can be blocked. You guys use defensive magic weapons or high-level defensive spells? Whitey shouted from behind. This discovery made the beast cultivators feel relieved. They no longer hesitated and threw all kinds of magic weapons and spells at the golden lightning without any scruples. Tienge's pressure increased sharply. The golden lightning was broken one by one. More than 10 beast cultivators cast spells at the same time. Even though it was the heavenly tribulation lightning, even though it was suppressed by the azure dragon, it could only hold on for a few breaths before it dissipated bit by bit. Tienge didn't have time to worry about the golden lightning. She just hoped to hold on for a little longer until the opportunity appeared and the reinforcements arrived. A fiery red light appeared in the sky. Whitey noticed it immediately and looked up to stare at that flight light. The other party rushed straight without the slightest hesitation. His powerful vermilion bird's breath spread out without any scruples, surging and stirring. "Stop him!" Whitey shouted when he realized that the other party was coming for them. The 5 beast cultivators retreated at the same time and turned to face the flight light. While flying rapidly, that person's sword light was already raised. The vermilion bird's breath flew wantonly, and the vermilion bird's flames carried destructive momentum and pressed down. The 5 beast cultivators went to meet him one after another, giving him an opportunity to take advantage of. He sent the 2 in front flying with lightning speed and forced the 3 in the back to retreat with his powerful vermilion bird's breath, buying himself a little time to rush into the golden lightning. Tienge had already seen him. She saw him rushing in at the risk of getting injured and rushing to her side. She was stunned for a long time before she reached out and grabbed his sleeve. She wanted to wait for reinforcements, but not like this. Why did you come here alone? Where's Jing Xingji? Where's Ling Yunhe? She shouted. They'll be here in a moment, Qin, she said. The sword formation was activated, and the vigorous vermilion bird's flames supported the golden lightning. The golden lightning's collapse was immediately stopped. Was Mo Tiange easy to deceive? Whitey said before that old He went to deal with them, and the number of beast cultivators he led definitely wouldn't be small. If they could break through the heavy encirclement and come to support them, Qin Shi wouldn't be alone, and he wouldn't have rushed in directly without caring about anything. You. She felt her voice trembling. What's the point of doing this? Are you coming to die with me? This was the first time she was so out of control after Demonic Mountain. Their love had never been shallow, but it had always been restrained. Cultivators who aimed at longevity faced a long life, a long lifespan, and a path full of thorns. In this process, their feelings were always inadvertently consumed. If they were too unscrupulous and squandered their feelings early, they would face the end of their love withering and flying away. Therefore, they had always been very rational and loved seriously. They would never hurt each other easily or burn their feelings wantonly. They kept moving forward at the same pace and filled their feelings with more things, such as ideals, goals, friendship. They were very successful. They belonged to the same sect, had the same ideals, made the same friends, and accompanied each other day and night for many years. Even their preferences and habits became the same. They didn't need to say a word to know each other's thoughts, as if they were another version of themselves. However, it was inevitable that such interactions would gradually become dull. They would always feel that even though they would unhesitatingly trust each other, even though they would do everything they could for each other, they would still have to weigh the pros and cons of any situation and place their rationality at the forefront. Just like this time, when she was in a life-and-death situation, she only wanted him to meet with the others and come to save her together. She didn't expect him to come over regardless of everything. Even if he couldn't save her, he would die with her. Are you crazy? Tears that hadn't been seen for a long time fell from her eyes. You said that if I died and you lived, you'd still live well. Why? But I also said that if we die together, I won't regret it. Qin Shi looked calm as if he was talking about something very ordinary. Tiange, I can't watch your life hanging by a thread and not come to save you, even if we die together. Chapter 670. Zhong Muling had already stood up and was looking down with a cold expression. Will he really not die? Ingot said sarcastically, even if this brat comes, it's hard to say, right? Humph. Zhong Muling didn't feel like talking to him. He lifted his sleeve, revealing a simple and thick square seal with a hint of threat. Ingot immediately shut his mouth. It wasn't that he couldn't beat this guy, but it was getting harder and harder to fight, which made him very sad. The two people down there were still struggling. The golden lightning was already on the verge of collapse. Even with the support of the vermilion bird's flames, it was barely able to keep itself from falling. They had been fighting for too long. Not to mention their spiritual auras, their spirits were also exhausted. Tiange. In the lightning and flames, Mo Tiange vaguely heard Qin Shi's voice. Do you still remember the first time we met? And I remember. Her eyes were already blurred, but the chaotic heavenly box still appeared and disappeared unpredictably, relying on divine sense to attack. What did I look like at that time? At that time, you pretended to be a ninth-layer aura refining disciple from a rundown cultivation clan and participated in the Immortal's assembly on Mount Yunwu. You didn't even use talismans and defeated several 10th-layer cultivators. So you've seen me before. Yes. Mo Tiange seemed to see the young man in a simple blue robe from more than 200 years ago. They clearly had the same appearance, but strangely, he looked ordinary. At the Immortal's assembly, second uncle told me that you were very skilled in using spiritual aura. If it wasn't because you had a senior to guide you, you had a firm will and would definitely have great achievements in the future. Ha! He chuckled. Second uncle has good eyes. Mo Tiange also chuckled. I really couldn't like you at that time. You didn't look arrogant, but you always had a wooden face. Whenever junior martial brother Su came to talk to you, you would always say, "N," to dismiss him. You would be with us, but you wouldn't let us get close to you. Even when I thanked you, you couldn't wait to drive me away. At that time, Qin, she said with a sigh, I never would have thought you'd become such an important person to me. I just thought, as it turns out, this is that girl who doesn't know what's good for her. She didn't want to be an elite disciple of Xianqing school and ran to be a common disciple of a small cultivation group like this. She even wanted to go to the Immortals assembly and fight to the death. Ha! Mo Tiange couldn't help but laugh. She then asked, if second uncle and I went back to Xianqing school at that time, how would you arrange things for me? He pretended to ponder and said, most likely, he'll accept you as his disciple and throw you to senior martial brother Xianin. Ah! Mo Tiange let out an ah, then she smiled at him. In that case, I actually missed a master. What a pity. No, it's not a pity at all. The smile on Qin Shi's face carried even more of a sigh. At that time, there was only the great Tao in my heart. If I had taken you as my disciple, I wouldn't have kept you on my mind all the time, and I wouldn't have become your senior martial brother Qin. I also wouldn't have been teased by the two deification realm seniors, and I definitely wouldn't have developed a mental barrier because of you. If everything hadn't started, we wouldn't be where we are today. He wasn't a pedophile. If he had met her in the beginning when she was still a little girl, he would have put her in the position of a junior and wouldn't have had any romantic thoughts. If we missed each other like that, the two of us in that world might never realize it and wouldn't know what regret it was. But today, I'm still glad that this series of freak accidents allowed us to have each other. Mo Tiange didn't say anything for a long time. The corners of her eyes were slightly wet, but she still had a smile on her face. I never knew you could talk so well. You made me feel like it wasn't enough, that no matter how much I had, it wouldn't be enough. She straightened her back and her gaze became fierce. We have to live. That way, we'll have a future, a very, very long future. Qin, she smiled. He suddenly bent down and kissed her. Live together. The golden lightning dimmed, but they still had the heaven and earth fan in their hands, the chaotic heavenly transformation box waiting for an opportunity to attack, the 3 yang real fire sword, the yang spiritual bead, and the vermilion bird bow. They were far from being resigned to their fates. The two people's sudden desire to live made Bai Ling bite her handkerchief bitterly. Their momentum had weakened, so why did they suddenly become so spirited? While she was thinking about this, she saw that in the golden lightning and flames, the male human cultivator took out a simple and unadorned longbow from somewhere. He slowly pulled the bowstring, and an arrow made of flames slowly took shape on the bow. Bai Ling was dumbfounded because of the powerful aura and the familiar shape. When that human cultivator aimed at her, she finally shouted as if she was scared out of her wits, "Vermilion bird bow. Quickly retreat." The vermilion bird bow. It was actually the vermilion bird bow, Ice Palace's cornerstone treasure. She grew up in Ice Palace, so she knew this legendary cornerstone treasure very well. The disciples of Ice Palace who practiced the ice and fire arts and held the vermilion bird bow were always the best among cultivators in the same realm. Some of them could even fight those in a higher realm than them. Unfortunately, it was too late. The vermilion bird bow ignited the vermilion bird's flames and drew a long arc in the air. With a clear cry, the vermilion bird appeared. Everything that stood in my way would be scorched. Ah, the beast cultivators who couldn't retreat in time were penetrated by the vermilion bird's flames. Even their primordial spirits couldn't escape before they lost their lives and fell from the sky. Taking advantage of the chaos, a beautiful ice crystal appeared in the midst of the demon cultivators. With a muffled explosion, that wondrous aura spread out in a large area, melting everything and melting everything. After being attacked by the vermilion bird's flames, many of the beast cultivators didn't even have time to use their defensive spiritual chi before the chaotic heaven transformation box took advantage of their weakness and attacked them. After 2 waves of attacks, only half of the beast cultivators were still standing safely outside of the attack range. Bai Ling was furious. If she had known that this human had the vermilion bird bow, she would never have let him have the chance to use it. However, it was too late now. In just a few seconds, they had lost 7 or 8 beast cultivators. Humph. The vermilion bird bow is too powerful. I don't believe you can use it a second time. Bai Ling struggled to stand up and planned to fight even though she was injured. But right at this moment, not far away, a rank 8 demon cultivator rushed over and cried out, Elder Bai, Shumi Hai is charging over. Bai Ling felt dizzy. She glared at the 2 of them angrily, but in the end, she just gritted her teeth and ordered, go. The beast cultivators left very quickly. In just a while, they all retreated. After a while, Jing Xingji and the others arrived. After a hard battle, everyone was in a mess. Almost everyone was injured. Yifan and Lord Daoist Lingxi's injuries were slightly heavier. It could be seen that the intensity of the battle just now was no less than theirs. Senior Marshal Brother Shoujing, Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei. Seeing that they were still alive, Lord Daoist Lingxi was extremely excited. Just now, he almost thought it was too late. If the 3 of them left the mountain and none of them returned, he didn't know how sad his senior martial brothers and sisters would be, especially senior martial brother Jinghe. He seemed to be heartless, but in fact, he loved his disciples the most. Everyone was very happy to see each other again. It was good that they could survive. After putting the spiritual beasts into her spiritual beast bracelet, Mo Tiange said, "It's not safe here. Follow me into the cracked space first." Everyone also knew that the beast cultivators retreated because a more powerful enemy was approaching. They'd better retreat to a safe place to avoid getting involved again. After summoning her spiritual bead and silently reciting the incantation, the group of people disappeared in midair and entered the virtual sky world. Ah, there really is a virtual sky world. Above the white cloud, Ingot took out a wine pot and a glass out of nowhere. He poured himself a drink and enjoyed it very much. His tone didn't contain any surprise, as if he already knew about this. Seeing that they were out of danger, Zhong Muling also smiled. This girl is really like me. Ingot cast him a sidelong glance. What? Are you proud? You're proud of having descendants. You can be jealous. Zhong Muling was unmoved. I don't think you can understand this kind of feeling. Humph. Ingot was unhappy. Unfortunately, he really couldn't refute him. After a while, he couldn't help but turn his head and ask, "How long do we have to wait here?" Zhong Muling leisurely picked up another wine glass and said, "Wait until they find the answer." Ingot glared at him. "Are you sure those juniors will tell you?" "Why not?" Zhong Muling raised his eyebrows. The 2 of them stared at each other for a while. In the end, Ingot gave up. He stretched his arms and lazily leaned against the cloud chair. He took out several immortal fruits out of nowhere and ate them while saying, "Okay, let's finish early. The seal on the wine brewed by that old guy Fuyao should be open now. Let's go to his place and drink." "You're only thinking about this." Zhong Muling snorted softly, but his tone was very gentle. Inside the virtual sky world, the group of people was familiar with it. As she released the spiritual beasts, she said, "We'll go out after they finish fighting." Then she gave some medicinal pills to Xiaofeng and asked her to heal Xiaofan. Lord Daoist Lingxi, the only one who hadn't seen them before, was stunned. He kind of guessed where their amazing medicinal pills came from, but there seemed to be no medicinal fields here. Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi. Qin Shi gestured for him to sit down and said gently, "This is a space crack. It's very safe here. You can rest assured." Lord Daoist Lingxi nodded and said with a smile, "I've only heard that there are some space cracks in this world that can be used to enter and exit, but they're very few. I didn't expect you to have one." Qin Shi smiled. He didn't deny that the virtual sky world wasn't his. It didn't matter. "Junior Marshal Brother, just heal here. We'll go out when things are done." "Yes, Senior Marshal Brother." Everyone rested and healed while Mo Tiange kept an eye on the situation outside. Before long, the Sea Beast army from returning Ruined Sea and Shumi Sea fought. Tens of thousands of sea beasts crowded together. Because many beast cultivators were killed or injured, returning Ruined Sea soon fell into a disadvantage. In addition to Whitey, Old Hay, and the green demonic beast were also among them. Ancient beast cultivators were indeed extraordinary. After coming out of the Immortal Palace in returning Ruined Sea, they all safely passed their heavenly tribulations and advanced a level with the help of the heavenly tribulations. Whitey and Old Hay were in the 10th rank, and the green demonic beast was in the 9th rank. Unfortunately, Whitey was seriously injured because of Mo Tiange, so Old Hay and the green demonic beast couldn't fight alone. The number of beast cultivators in Shumi Sea was no less than theirs, and their strength was well preserved. The battle lasted for 3 days. Chapter 671. When the shell in her bosom vibrated again, Mo Tiange stopped to adjust her breath. "We can go out now." Qin Shi nodded, then called everyone to leave the virtual sky world together. After 3 days of rest, everyone had recovered. After all, the spiritual beasts weren't strong. After going through this bitter battle, they were more or less injured, so Mo Tiange didn't take them with her. Dao Lord Lingxi consumed the 9 revolutions Yang return elixir and temporarily controlled his injuries. Not long after they left the virtual sky world, they saw several flight lights flying towards them. When they arrived in front of them, the conveyance light dissipated, revealing 3 figures, Xian Miao in a blue palace dress, Xian Yu in black, and Ni who looked honest but was actually cunning. "Fellow Daoist Mo, fellow Daoist Qin, long time no see." Xian Miao smiled at the two of them. "Long time no see. The third princess looks even more elegant than before." Mo Tiange smiled back, then nodded towards Xian Yu and Ni. "Second prince, fellow Daoist Ni." Xian Yu and Ni only faintly returned the greeting and didn't overstep Xian Miao in the slightest. This made Mo Tiange feel that Xian Miao's position as the monarch's successor had probably been stabilized. Both sides introduced themselves to each other and greeted each other. "Fellow Daoists, I already know why you've come. I'll tell you the truth. The Qilin sacrificial temple is in our hands. It is for this reason that the Shumi Sea and the returning Ruined Sea have fought for so many years. Otherwise, we would have never left the Shumi Sea after listening to Great Ancestors' warning." Third princess. Since Xian Miao was so frank, Mo Tiange also spoke with sincerity. "We indeed came for the Qilin sacrificial temple, but unlike what fellow Daoist Bailing thought, we didn't come to snatch the Qilin's relic. Other people might not understand this reason, but Third Princess is very clear about it. We've always kept in mind what Senior Hupa entrusted to us. We've already found the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and black tortoise temples. Now, there's only the Qilin left. Since the Qilin sacrificial temple is already in Third Princess's hands, I hope Third Princess will allow us to enter together. Xian Miao smiled and nodded. Fellow Daoist, don't worry. We don't dare to forget the words of the Divine Monarch and Great Ancestor. Fellow Daoist, feel free to enter the Qilin sacrificial temple. We won't stop you. But... Upon seeing the confusion on her face, Mo Tiange said, Third Princess, if you have something to say, please speak frankly. Xian Miao said, we did find the Qilin sacrificial temple, but the entrance seems to be blocked. We haven't been able to enter, so we can't say whether we can enter or not. Mo Tiange was stunned. Oh. This matter couldn't be explained clearly, so Xian Miao straightforwardly said, fellow Taoists, please follow me. You'll understand once you take a look. Then, Xian Miao turned around and brought Xian Yu and Enrich down to the sea. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, can they be trusted? Dao Lord Rhinoceros was somewhat hesitant. Judging from their conversation just now, they seemed to be very familiar with each other and their words were filled with trust. This left Dao Lord Rhinoceros in disbelief. Over the past few days, he had witnessed the unconditional trust between their friends. It was already rare to have such a friend, let alone a group of them. Now, they even had a demonic cultivator? Qin, she said, Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi, there's a karma between us and these fellow Taoists, so in this matter, they're trustworthy. With this in mind, Lord Lingxi immediately recalled the words Senior Amber and Divine Lord and Great Ancestor that Mo Tiange and Xian Miao mentioned just now, so she didn't say anything more. Everyone followed behind Xian Miao and dived into the sea. Xian Miao and the others were demonic cultivators in the sea. Once they entered the sea, they were like fish in water. She led them forward quickly and soon reached the bottom of a small island. Facing a stone wall, Xian Miao raised her hand and pointed at it. The stone wall shook and moved away without a sound. Xian Miao gestured for them to enter, then led Xian Yu and Enrich inside. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi followed without hesitation. Jing Xingji and the others followed closely behind them. Everyone entered and the stone wall closed. This was an underwater cave. The dark space was brightly and beautifully illuminated by the luminous pearls. The strange thing was that there was no seawater inside the cave, it was like dry land. Greetings to the third princess, the second prince, Elder Ni, and all the honored guests. Several 8th-rank demonic cultivators guarding the cave stepped forward and saluted them upon seeing them. Xian Miao nodded slightly and the others saluted back. Fellow Taoists, it's here. Xian Miao pointed at a towering door. This door was made of bluestone and was carved from boulders. It was towering, dignified, and imposing. The 2 stone doors were carved with lifelike qilins, emitting a majestic aura. Qilins aura. Mo Tiange said softly. Since there was such a pure qilins aura, this was definitely the Qilin sacrificial temple. It was funny. Ever since she discovered the Azure Dragon sacrificial temple when she was in the foundation building realm, she had never entered the Four Spirits sacrificial temple from the main entrance. The Azure Dragon sacrificial temple was another entrance. The Vermilion Bird was built into an underground palace by the Ice Palace. The White Tiger was embedded in the West Mountain Range. The Black Tortoise was also from another entrance. Until the Qilin sacrificial temple, she finally saw the main entrance. This is a really exciting thing. We've thought of all kinds of methods, but we couldn't open it, Xian Miao said. But fellow Taoists don't need to worry. It's only been a few days. We can slowly think of a way. Fellow Taoist, you're right. We Mo Tiange was about to say something when the mighty Qilan's aura suddenly soared into the sky. It was as if something had rushed out of the sacrificial temple. Everyone was shocked. Such a strong Qilan's aura. What happened? Hee hee. A chuckle rang in everyone's ears. The voice seemed far but was actually close. It was as if it was right next to their ears. After waiting for so many years, someone finally came. A man's voice, which was neither loud nor deep, sounded leisurely and leisurely. Xian Miao's expression changed. She shouted, "Who are you? Come out quickly. Don't play tricks on us." "Little girl, don't be so hot-tempered," the man said, "even your great-great-great-grandfather wouldn't talk to me like this." "Ah." Xian Miao was stunned. For a moment, she couldn't understand the meaning of his words. Alas, young people nowadays. Don't they know how to respect their elders? The man seemed to be talking to himself. His voice was obviously very young, but his tone was arrogant. "May I ask which senior you are?" Qin Shi raised his voice and asked, "Senior, since you've waited for so many years, you probably aren't playing tricks on us, right?" The voice paused for a moment and said with a hint of a smile, "Young people are indeed impatient. All right, I'll let you in." As soon as the voice finished speaking, the Qilan door seemed to be touched by something and slowly opened. The dozen or so people present looked at each other, but no one dared to step in. "What? Don't you have the guts?" the voice teased. Xian Miao clenched her teeth and took the lead to walk out. "Miao Miao." Xian Yu was startled and called her. Xian Miao raised her head and said, "This is the Qilan sacrificial temple. We're the descendants of Qilan. Don't tell me we don't dare to go in." After she said that, she flapped her clothes and steadily walked in. Xian Yu was stunned and sighed in disappointment. He finally knew why he was inferior to his third sister. "Let's go," Qin Shi said, "with this senior's strength, he doesn't need to do anything unnecessary to deal with us." He also walked in. A group of more than 10 cultivators silently walked into the Qilan sacrificial temple. The wide stone path was filled with the vigorous breath of Qilan, which made Mo Tiange deeply feel that although they were all divine beasts, the 5 spirits had extremely powerful strength. The Qilan's breath she obtained from the amber couldn't move at all under this kind of spiritual aura. The end of the stone path suddenly opened, and the Qilan main hall was in front of everyone. As soon as they approached, the door of the hall slowly opened, and a voice came from close at hand. "Welcome, little friends." As soon as they entered the Qilan main hall, everyone was dumbfounded. The main hall was no different from the other worship temples. The only difference was that the statue of a majestic Qilan was in the position of the statue. The strange thing was that the side of the statue seemed to be connected to another space. There were no huge stone walls, but instead, there were green mountains, clear water, and gurgling water. There was a chess table next to the pool, and on top of it was a strange chess set with colorful patterns. Mo Tiange recognized at a glance that it was a formation diagram. Next to the chess table, a person was sitting on his knees with a gorgeous feathered spiritual bird in his hand. He was looking at them with a leisurely smile. This person looked young, no more than 30 years old. His eyebrows were very plain and couldn't be considered handsome, but his whole body was full of a kind of natural and unrestrained temperament. With just a glance, people would feel that he was extraordinary. But the most frightening thing was the breath on his body. It was like a deep abyss and calm sea, rising but not releasing. "Senior is." Mo Tiange couldn't breathe. "A deification cultivator?" The person smiled and said leisurely, "You're the junior Qi Ling. I have his breath on you." Qi Ling was Zhong Muling's Daoist name. Mo Tiange took a deep breath then bowed to greet him. "Junior Mo Tiange greets senior." Upon hearing what she said, the others also came to their senses and saluted one after another. Ling Yunhe, Lord Daoist Lingxi, and the others were especially excited. This was their first time seeing a legendary deification cultivator. Xianyue, Xuanmiao, and the others also saluted respectfully. First, it was because their respect for deification cultivators had nothing to do with the Zhong clan. Second, it was because this deification cultivator seemed to know their ancestor. No need to be so polite. The person smiled and stroked the bird next to his hand. After everyone stood up, Mo Tiange asked respectfully, "May I know Senior's name and why you're in the Qilin sacrificial temple?" The person let go of the bird in his hand, letting it fly away before answering, "My name is Han Quan. I'm currently on duty in the Qilin sacrificial temple." This answer stunned Mo Tiange. On duty? Han Quan nodded with a smile. Correct. Since 10,000 years ago, there have been deification cultivators guarding the Qilin sacrificial temple. They take turns to be on duty every 1,000 years. Ah. Nia Wushang whispered, "So, all the deification cultivators know what we've done." Her sharp reaction drew Han Quan's admiring gaze. "You're not wrong to say that." His words shocked them. They all know. Does that mean people have already been to the other 4 spirit sacrificial temples? If that's the case, why did they still get the divine beast's inheritance? Was it necessary for them to search for the truth? Xuanmiao was stunned for a long time. All of a sudden, she shouted excitedly, "That being the case, why didn't you go to my divine lord great ancestor? You're deification cultivators, so you're much stronger than us. Why didn't you lend him a helping hand? Senior, you said you knew one of my ancestors, right? Could it be that he also didn't want to ask his own ancestor for help?" Chapter 672. After Xian Miao questioned him, Han Quan looked at her deeply and said, "Little girl, whether you believe it or not, we didn't know about this before. If you hadn't found that senior, we wouldn't have known there were divine beasts left from the distant past era in this world." Han Quan's answer stunned Xian Miao. "This? You even know about the sacrificial temple? How could you not know?" Han Quan waved his hand. "You're from the Qilin clan, so I'll let your ancestor explain these things to you." Xian Miao knew there were ancestors in her clan who broke through to the 10th rank, but that was only a family legend and had no proof. Moreover, for some reason, after the breakthrough, these ancestors no longer stayed in the clan and disappeared from the world. Now, she had a chance to see them. Could it be that these ancestors had always been there, but they just didn't want to meet them? Just what kind of secret were these soul formation cultivators hiding by doing this? Han Quan didn't say anything more. A spiritual light gathered between his fingers, and he casually pointed to the side. A door emitting mist appeared. "Go in. You'll be able to see your ancestor once you go in." Ha! This kind of magical spell only existed in legends. Xian Miao regained her composure after a while and respectfully saluted Han Quan. "Senior, please forgive me if I offended you just now. Junior can't thank Senior enough for your kindness." Han Quan waved his hand carelessly. "Go in." Xian Miao led the beast cultivators to salute him again, then walked towards the door. The beast cultivators entered the door and disappeared. Han Quan waved his hand gently, and the door also disappeared. It looked like a transporting formation, but it was much more casual. The divine power of deification cultivators was too magical. "And you too." Han Quan's gaze fell on Mo Tiange and Qin Shi. He smiled faintly. "You two are old friends with the other two, so, Senior, do you also want to send us away?" Mo Tiange asked. Han Quan nodded. "Of course." Mo Tiange turned to look at him. What about them? Han Quan said, don't worry. Deification cultivators don't kill people. Since they're fated to meet me, it must be a fated chance. Mo Tiange looked happy and sincerely thanked him. Thank you, Senior. Han Quan nodded and pointed again, forming a teleportation door. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi stood up, bid farewell to the others and stepped through the door. The white light around them gathered and dispersed. In the blink of an eye, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi were already standing on the white clouds. Yo, you're out. You're pretty fast. A slightly frivolous voice sounded in his ear. The two of them turned around and saw a young man sitting across from each other on the white cloud. The one who spoke was naturally Yuan Bao. He leaned against the cloud chair in a very rude manner and looked at Qin Shi with a grin. Brat, how does it feel to be a human furnace? Qin Shi was stunned. He recalled how he was deceived by Mo Tiange back then. He thought he really wanted to cultivate Mo Tiange into Mo Tiange's human furnace, and in the end, he struggled with this matter for several years. His face was slightly red and his voice was stiff. Thank you for your kindness, Senior. You don't have to worry about this kind of thing. Seeing that Yuan Bao still wanted to tease him, Zhong Muling cleared his throat and gave him a warning look. Ingrid raised his hand in surrender. Mo Tiange brushed her robes and knelt down. Tiange greets Great Ancestor. After we parted that year, I finally see Great Ancestor again. I wonder if Great Ancestor has been well for more than 200 years. Zhong Muling nodded lightly. His gaze was gratified, and a faint smile appeared on his face. I'm very good. You're also not bad. The fated chance I gave you back then wasn't in vain for your achievements today. Mo Tiange said, I haven't advanced to the deification realm yet, so I don't deserve Great Ancestor's praise. Zhong Muling's smile deepened. Deification. Deification is 100 times more difficult than nascent soul. It's good that you have this ambition, but you mustn't be impatient. When I advanced to the deification realm, I was already more than 1,000 years old. Even someone as talented as Yuan couldn't advance to the deification realm within 1,000 years. You still have a long way to go. Yes, I'll sincerely follow Great Ancestor's teachings. Zhong Muling shifted his gaze. Qin Shi also kowtowed. Greetings, Senior. Seeing that he was a bit reserved, Zhong Muling smiled. No need to be so polite. Just call me Great Ancestor like Tiange does. Zhong Muling's acknowledgement made Qin Shi sigh in relief. Yes, Great Ancestor. Sit down. Zhong Muling gently waved his hand. 2 cloud chairs floated beside the table. After bowing to the two of them again, the two of them finally stood up and sat down on the cloud chairs. You being able to reach this point is somewhat beyond my expectations, Zhong Muling said. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and Qilin. Originally, we old guys didn't think anyone would have such a fated chance to gather the 5 spirits. I didn't expect you to succeed. Mo Tiange was full of questions when she saw Han Quan. Even deification cultivators knew about the 5 spirit sacrificial temples. Could it be that all of this was planned by them? Great Ancestor, do you actually know about these sacrificial temples? Zhong Muling nodded. I do. Seeing that the doubts on her face deepened, he waved his hand. It's not what you think. We didn't deliberately plan anything. Since she really couldn't guess what was going on, Mo Tiange said, Great Ancestor, please explain. Zhong Muling heaved a long sigh and lightly tapped the table with his fingers. After a long time, he finally said, the existence of the 5 spirit sacrificial temples is actually related to an ancient gambling game. It's related to the truth of this world's existence and even the existence of God. I have to tell you that if you know about this, your beliefs might suffer an unprecedented impact. You might lose the meaning of cultivating and even doubt your own existence. His expression was solemn, and his words were frightening. This couldn't help but make Mo Tiange and Qin Shi feel somewhat uneasy. They looked at each other and clasped their hands. They felt that no matter what it was, they had the courage to face it. Mo Tiange nodded firmly. Great Ancestor, whether we know about it or not, this matter already exists. Even if we don't know about it, what can we do? Great Ancestor, please speak frankly. All right. Zhong Muling showed a faint smile. He was very satisfied with them. He thought for a while, then slowly began to narrate his story. This story has to start from God. In your hearts, what kind of existence are God? He only paused for a moment. Without waiting for them to answer, he continued, in people's eyes, God is the creator and ruler of the world. They are benevolent, fair, powerful, and omnipotent. However, they obviously overlooked one thing: as creators, they might be fair, but they definitely can't be benevolent. His last sentence was resolute and decisive. The world is heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs. The Taoist scriptures say that all living things in the world are the same to God. He created all living things and let them grow, treating them the same. In this kind of situation, how could he be benevolent? Cattle and sheep eat grass, how could they be benevolent to grass? Lions and tigers eat sheep, how could they be benevolent to sheep? The world doesn't need benevolence, and the God who created the world also isn't benevolent. For them, the most important thing is to establish rules and act naturally. Mo Tiange was silent for a long time before she slowly nodded. Therefore, for God, they don't care about the destruction of the world. If there's life, there's death. If there's creation, there's destruction. Zhong Muling said in an almost indifferent tone, they create the world and set the rules. Once they discover that the world isn't to their liking, it's not a pity to destroy it. Mo Tiange suddenly remembered what her master, Lord Daoist Jinghe, said to her many years ago. It was so similar to what Zhong Muling said. For a moment, she actually trembled a little. When the world is established, once it's not to their liking, it'll be destroyed and rebuilt. We are all God's puppets, yes. That's exactly it. Zhong Muling's gaze gradually became fierce. We're all God's puppets. They create us, watch us live, cultivate, and even change the world. But as long as they're dissatisfied, they can erase us. Zhong Muling closed his eyes and said with a calm tone, our world is also like this. The end of the distant past era was destruction and reconstruction. The separation of immortals and devils, and the separation of demons and spirits, all of these were God slowly adjusting the rules. Therefore, the distant past era is different from the Middle Ages era, and the present era is also different from the Middle Ages era. Not only are the spiritual aura and resources different, but even the beliefs of cultivators are also different. Maybe you don't know, but our world isn't the only human world created by God. They were able to create a human world, so naturally, they could create thousands of them. In the distant past era, this world was already abandoned once, but there was a God who fought for a slim chance of survival for us. Zhong Muling suddenly changed the topic. You've been to the fallen God abyss, right? Mo Tiange nodded. She didn't understand what this had to do with it. The fallen God abyss is actually a trace left behind by the battle between two gods. Ah! Mo Tiange cried out in alarm. At first, they thought it was a trace left behind by the battle between immortals, but it turned out it was actually a trace left behind by the battle between gods. It was no wonder there was primal chaos aura. It was also no wonder Qin Shi said that place was too clean. Presumably, a deification cultivator had already been there. Two heavenly deities fought each other. One heavenly deity stopped the other from destroying the supreme ancient immortal realms. Hence, our world is able to exist. Mo Tiange asked hesitantly, why did the two gods fight each other? Gods are also different, Zhong Muling said, they have different personalities and different preferences. One god thought this world should be destroyed, while the other thought it could exist. In the end, the latter won. Maybe it was out of pity, or maybe it was out of love, but he stopped the destruction of the distant past era and made a bet with the other god. Mo Tiange's heart skipped a beat. She recalled how Hupip said this was a gamble, an unprecedented gamble. If they won, the human world would have a chance of survival. What was it? The gamble was whether living beings could save themselves. If they could, they would never take the initiative to destroy this world. Zhong Muling said this calmly. His tone didn't change in the slightest. In order to leave behind a chance of survival and win the gamble, that god used human hands to build the five spirits sacrificial temple. He sealed this matter in the sacrificial temple, leaving the breath of the five spirits in the sacrificial temple as well as the devil cultivation method. He wanted to see if anyone could find out the truth. If someone found it, whether they were Taoists, Confucians, Buddhists or devils, they would gain something. Zhong Muling stared at them and said, therefore, obtaining the inheritance of the five spirits sacrificial temple or the primordial devil cultivation technique is the great way to heaven. This seemed to be good news, but Zhong Muling and Yuan Bao didn't have any smiles on their faces. This made them feel that the aftermath wasn't as good as they thought. Qin she asked, but since the deification seniors knew about the existence of the five spirits sacrificial temple, how could it still be our turn? Why are the others still intact except for the Qilan sacrificial temple? Zhong Muling smiled and shook his head. His smile was bleak. Because it was too late. We discovered it too late. This gamble ended a long time ago. If we were cultivators from the distant past era, this would indeed be the great way to heaven. But we were born in this world. The distant past era was destroyed, and the great way to heaven was severed. Chapter 673. Yuan Bao, who had been silent the whole time, said softly, 100,000 years ago, there was a cultivator in Yunzhong called Fu Yaozi. He had been searching for the truth of this world. Through various clues, he found many records about the destruction of the distant past era. After he advanced to the deification realm, he found the notes of an ancient Mahayana cultivator in a divine palace. Only then did he know what the destruction of the distant past era was. Although the distant past era was destroyed, it was a normal reconstruction. The destruction of the distant past era was because the gods abandoned this world. Abandoned? Mo Tiange was a bit confused. Yuan Bao nodded lightly. Yes, abandoned. At that time, they wanted to completely destroy this world, but the result was that they didn't completely destroy this world. This world flourished again. The destructive power last time was too strong and damaged its origin, so the spiritual aura in our world became thin and spiritual objects were rare. Mo Tiange took a deep breath. She never thought she would hear such a truth. This is an abandoned world, Zhong Muling said coldly. No matter how we cultivate, we can't ascend. The deification realm is our final destination. That's why you can still see the five-spirit sacrificial temple and obtain the five-spirit inheritance. For us deification cultivators, these things are meaningless. It's better to leave them for later generations to see if there's a person destined by heaven who can obtain the inheritance and change this fate. But Mo Tiange felt she couldn't breathe. Since it's already been abandoned by the gods, how can there be a person destined by heaven? Zhong Muling and Yuan Bao didn't answer. This was a question they couldn't answer. Destiny. For an abandoned world, where was the destiny? Although they knew it was ridiculous, they still hoped there was such a destiny in their hearts. Even if that's the case, have you tried it? Can the five-spirit inheritance and the primordial devil great technique really not reach the heavens? Mo Tiange didn't give up. Yuan Bao answered, "Why do you think we chose to be on duty at the Qilin sacrificial temple?" Because the Qilin sacrificial temple was discovered first. Both the Qilin and the primordial devil great technique were inherited by someone else. They were the ones who discovered this. Who are they? Zhong Muling said, "You should have heard of these two people. The one who obtained the primordial devil great technique is the #1 devil cultivator in Yunzhong, Demon Venerable Sky. The one who obtained the Qilin's inheritance is Fu Yaozi." He stared at Mo Tiange and said, "He's that master of yours." "Ah!" Mo Tiange exclaimed. From what Ingot said just now, she already knew Fu Yaozi was a deification cultivator, but she didn't expect Zhong Muling would also know about this. Zhong Muling knew what she was thinking, so he said, "Don't be suspicious. We weren't spying on you. It's just that you entered the Azure Dragon sacrificial temple and later, by chance, you entered the Vermilion Bird sacrificial temple, so we paid special attention to you." Soul formation cultivators paid special attention to it. Naturally, their entire life experiences could not be hidden. Mo Tiange didn't dwell on this matter. She said, "Even if I entered 2 sacrificial temples at the same time, so what? I'm sure all of your soul formation seniors have already entered. How could the mandate of heaven be so simple?" Zhong Muling smiled bitterly. "How could we not know this? It's just that I'm unwilling. I'm unwilling to be abandoned in this world where I can't ascend." Back then, Fu Yaozi and Demon Venerable Skylight searched every corner of this world and found the Qilin sacrificial temple. Each of them obtained one of the fated chances. Fu Yaozi obtained the Qilin's inheritance while Demon Venerable Skylight obtained the primordial devil steel. They soon discovered that these two things contained formidable power. If they cultivated them properly, they would surpass all the cultivation techniques in this world. This discovery was soon known by all the deification cultivators. After they advanced into the deification realm, they discovered that it was difficult for their cultivation levels to make any progress. It was almost impossible for them to advance again. Because of this, they began to search for clues about the 5 spirits. You should know that deification cultivators are very rare. Only 1 or 2 appear on each continent every several thousand years. Especially during their era, when the world flourished again, it had only been several tens of thousands of years. At that time, there were no more than 10 deification cultivators in the world. The competition wasn't too fierce. Moreover, even if they obtained the divine beast's inheritance and the great primordial devil technique, their path to heaven was still boundless. Therefore, they simply formed an alliance and agreed to find 5 sacrificial temples before dividing the treasures. At this point, Zhong Muling stopped and heaved a sigh. There was no need to say anything else. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi already understood that the alliance of deification cultivators naturally went smoothly. Unfortunately, after they found it, they immediately discovered that it was meaningless to them. Therefore, aside from the Qilin, the 5 spirits were still perfectly preserved. For several tens of thousands of years, people continuously advanced to the deification realm and people continuously learned the truth, but nothing could change. We couldn't contact the people outside. It seemed like we couldn't break through that invisible barrier in the deification realm. But in this world, we simply couldn't advance any further. The cycle kept repeating itself and became an unsolvable problem. Then, will our world still be destroyed? Mo Tiange asked after a long time. I don't know, Zhong Muling answered faintly. Maybe not. Mo Tiange kind of wanted to ask. If the world was destroyed, would they get the attention of God again and see the path to heaven? But she didn't ask again because she didn't need to and couldn't get an answer. The four of them didn't speak again. Yuan Bao sipped his wine intermittently. Zhong Muling sat in silence. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi looked at each other without saying anything. However, their tightly clasped hands were extremely cold. It turned out their long-term pursuit, the pursuit of millions of cultivators in the world, was just a dream, an unreachable dream. Do you still want to advance to the deification realm? After a long time, Zhong Muling asked, or do you still want to cultivate? Seeing that they couldn't answer, Zhong Muling didn't say much. He said, I'll take you back. When you advance to the deification realm, we'll probably see each other again. You don't need to pay attention to the Qilin sacrificial temple anymore. It's just a boring game played by us old guys to see if anyone could really find it. Since you found it, it'll be abandoned. Zhong Muling raised his hand and was about to create a space-transporting gate when he heard Mo Tiange shouting, Great Ancestor, wait. He stopped for a moment and asked, Do you have anything else to say? Mo Tiange asked, There's still something I don't understand. Why did the 5 spirit sacrificial temples' position only happen after the world changed and the continent shifted? Why did the continent shift happen? Is it related to me? Anne. Upon hearing her question, Zhong Muling's face stiffened. He showed a strange expression and finally said, You just want to ask these questions. This wasn't the main point, okay? Mo Tiange was a bit embarrassed and said, Great Ancestor, what you said is indeed shocking, but it can't be changed. These things have puzzled me for a long time, and I've never had anyone to ask. All right. Zhong Muling showed a helpless expression. In fact, this world originally looked like this. It's just that the destruction of the distant past era was too thorough, so it became like this. As for why it changed back, we can't answer this question in detail. We can only say that it's related to you. You activated the modified mysterious void cloud formation in the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple, which affected the balance of space and caused the space to collapse. The 5 Spirit Sacrificial Temple is inextricably linked to this world, so it eventually caused the continent to shift and return to its original state. I see. Mo Tiange nodded as if she understood something. She then asked, Great Ancestor, may I ask how long does a deification cultivator have? Why can a cultivator from 100,000 years ago survive until now? Zhong Muling was silent for a while then answered, Since the world has changed, the rules have also changed. In this broken world, deification cultivators are too powerful, so correspondingly, they can't meddle in human affairs. As for their lifespan, even we don't know how long a deification cultivator can live. Maybe they can even live forever. Do you have any other questions? Zhong Muling asked after he explained everything in detail. Mo Tiange shook her head. I don't have any other questions. I just want to ask Great Ancestor. About that cheap master of yours, right? Yuan Bao, who was standing on the side, interrupted. Mo Tiange nodded. Yes. Just now, I heard Senior Yuan Bao say that my master, Fu Yaozi, is already a deification cultivator. Yes, he's one of the first people in this world to reach the deification realm. Yuan Bao said somewhat sourly. Speaking of which, he and Zhong Muling had lived for several thousand years, but to Fu Yaozi from 100,000 years ago, they were juniors who couldn't be any later. Their seniority was lowered for no reason. Can I see him? Looking at her hopeful eyes, Zhong Muling said. I'll tell him. If he wants to see you, he'll come looking for you. Mo Tiange showed a happy smile. Thank you, Great Ancestor. Her expression made Zhong Muling feel a bit sour. You're very respectful to him, but you're not like this to me, Great Ancestor, Great Ancestor, Mo Tiange wanted to explain, but Zhong Muling waved his hand, indicating that she didn't need to explain. Go back. Although you already know the truth, you're not a deification cultivator after all. If you want to worry about these things, you still have a long way to go. With a point of his finger, a space-transporting gate appeared in front of them. Whether we're still related or not, whether we can meet again or not, depends on your choice. After Mo Tiange and Qin Shi's figures disappeared, Zhong Muling and Ingot didn't speak for a long time. They already knew the truth, but they'd been free and unfettered for so long that they somewhat forgot how cruel this truth was to cultivators who pursued the Great Tao their whole lives. Aling, did you notice one thing? What? Ingot stood up and sprinkled a cup of wine on the sea from the clouds as if he was holding a memorial for those brave souls who passed away in pursuit of the Great Tao. The appearance of this girl changed a lot of things. 2 of the 5 sacrificial temples were destroyed, the world returned to its original position, and we even found a senior Qilin who was imprisoned in this world that we didn't know about. Zhong Muling was silent for a long time before he said, she didn't do all of this alone. Let's say that senior Qilin was the result of the efforts of the Qilin clan in Shumisi. But it's related to her again, isn't it? Ingot said, the person with the mandate of heaven doesn't change the world with their own strength. Instead, they cause the world to change. Zhong Muling was slightly moved. You're saying she's the person with the mandate of heaven? I didn't say that. Ingot looked calm. In any case, this game is over. Maybe the person with the mandate of heaven will really bring us the person with the mandate of heaven, or maybe there's nothing. But it doesn't matter. The days of the deification realm are really boring. Chapter 674. Mo Tiange looked at Mount Taikang under her feet and sighed. They had only left the mountain for a few days. None of them expected they would find the answer in such a short time. Senior Martial Brother. She looked at Mount Taikang surrounded by immortal aura and asked, should we tell them the truth? Qin Shi shook his head. What should we tell them? That this world has been abandoned and there's no way to ascend. Forget it. Our deification seniors haven't told us this secret for tens of thousands of years. Why should we cut off other people's hope? Not everyone could bear the cruelty of the truth. The deification cultivators didn't say it because they had their own concerns. Mo Tiange thought about it and nodded with a sigh. That's fine. The fact that there's no way to ascend is something deification cultivators should consider. In thousands of years, only 1 or 2 cultivators have to face it. Let them always have hope. While they were talking, a streak of light flew up from Mount Taikang and swept towards them. The person stopped in front of them. The flight light dispersed, revealing an ordinary but smiling face. Martial Uncle Shoujing, Martial Uncle Qingwei, you're back so soon. This person was Wu Feishuang. After she advanced to the core formation realm, her Daoist name was Dingguan. Mo Tiange used to criticize this Daoist name in her mind. Wu Feishuang's personality was very similar to Lord Daoist Miaoi's. She looked kind but was actually very firm inside. However, Lord Daoist Miaoi gave her a Daoist name of Dingguan. Wasn't she cultivating to become a stone? That being said, Mo Tiange still sighed when she saw Wu Feishuang's empty left sleeve. She couldn't form a body before forming her nascent soul, but it wasn't difficult to make a temporary fake hand. However, she left her left sleeve empty as if to announce her determination. Things went smoother than I thought, Mo Tiange said vaguely. Only the Lord Taoists knew the purpose of their trip. The others didn't know, so there was no need to explain it now. As a junior, Wu Feishuang wouldn't ask too many questions. She bowed to them and said, Martial uncles, please show me your identity tablets. The battle was getting more and more intense. Xianqing School's Great Mountain Protecting Formation was always on alert. No matter who they were, they had to show their identity tablets to enter or leave. After checking their identity tablets and confirming there were no mistakes, Wu Feishuang respectfully said, "Martial uncles, welcome back to the mountain. Don't stand on ceremony." Qin Shi waved his hand and entered the temporary entrance of the Great Mountain Protecting Formation. He then asked casually, "Has junior martial brother Lingxi returned to the mountain?" Wu Feishuang replied, reporting to Martial Uncle, "This disciple has been on duty recently and has yet to see Martial Uncle Lingxi." Qin Shi nodded. They were teleported to Zhong Muling and Yuan Bao and were sent back in less than half a day. Han Quan once said the others would have a fated chance, and Lord Daoist Lingxi might have been delayed because of this. Just as they were about to descend to Clear Spring Peak, their hearts suddenly trembled at the same time. It was as if an invisible force had appeared out of nowhere. In the next moment, a clap of thunder suddenly sounded in the sky, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged, condensing into numerous tangible spiritual lights. "This is..." Wu Feishuang exclaimed in astonishment. Who advanced to the nascent soul realm? Mo Tiange was first startled, then delighted. She turned towards Qin Shi and asked, "Who advanced to the nascent soul realm?" After feeling pleasantly surprised, Qin Shi looked towards the source of the surging spiritual aura. "Morning Sun Peak, forming my nascent soul," Wu Feishuang murmured. She also looked at Morning Sun Peak with a complicated expression. There was both expectation and worry on her face. Could it be him? The celestial phenomenon of nascent soul formation was becoming more and more obvious. Lord Daoist Jinyang had already come out of his cave. Looking at the surging wind and clouds around him, he laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha ha. Good. Zhifei, you finally didn't disappoint Master's expectations." It was impossible for Lord Daoist Jinyang not to care about seeing Lord Daoist Jinghe's disciples forming their nascent souls one after another. However, nascent soul formation couldn't be forced. His disciples either lacked fated chances or they didn't live up to expectations, so he couldn't do anything about it. At this moment, his long-cherished wish finally came true, so he was extremely happy. Once he finished laughing, he was even more delighted to see Mo Tiange and Qin Shi returning. "You two came back so soon. Where's Lingxi?" "Senior martial brother Jinyang." The two bowed to greet him. "Junior martial brother Lingxi will probably come back later." Qin Shi looked at the celestial phenomenon of nascent soul formation on Morning Sun Peak and asked, "Senior martial brother, has Zhifei formed his nascent soul?" "Yes." Lord Daoist Jinyang was overjoyed and said in a loud voice, "Zhifei learned his lesson all these years and cast aside his obsession. Now, he's finally severed his past entanglements and reached the nascent soul realm." Qin Shi nodded with a smile. "Xianqing School has its 9th Lord Daoist. Congratulations. 9 nascent soul cultivators, 10 wasn't far away." Lord Daoist Jinyang was complacent at the thought that the number of nascent soul cultivators in the sect would reach double digits when he was in charge. He wasn't a cultivator who wholeheartedly cultivated. He'd been in charge of Xianqing School for many years, and the strength of the sect gave him a great sense of satisfaction, especially when the one forming his nascent soul was his disciple. "Qingwei, Shoujing, this is all thanks to you. Without you, Xianqing School wouldn't be where it is today." After the excitement, Lord Daoist Jinyang looked solemn and bowed deeply to them. The two hurriedly stepped aside. "Senior martial brother Jinyang, you're too polite. We're also Xianqing School's disciples, so this is what we should do." Lord Daoist Jinyang bowed and said with a smile, "You two came back just in time. Miaoyi and Xianin are both in closed-door meditation, so it'll be a bit lonely for Zhifei to come out. You two can make up the numbers." Besides, you're all disciples of the same generation, so it's always good to get closer. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi looked at each other. They both understood what Lord Daoist Jinyang meant. Bai Yanfei's downfall wasn't unrelated to them. Now that he formed his nascent soul and was on the same level as a Lord Daoist, he should erase everything from the past. The two of them going to greet him was a step forward to show their attitude. This was also Lord Daoist Jinyang's last test for Bai Yanfei. To be honest, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi didn't care about the entanglement between them, so they naturally agreed to Lord Daoist Jinyang's small request. Besides, if someone in the sect formed his nascent soul, they should greet him. When Qin Shi returned to the mountain after forming his nascent soul, didn't Lord Daoist Jinyang, who was the head of the sect, also come out to greet him personally? The two of them agreed and followed Lord Daoist Jinyang to Bai Yanfei's Immortal's cave. After taking 2 steps, they heard Wu Feishuang say, "Martial Uncle Jinyang, Martial Uncle's disciple is on duty and can't leave, so I won't go." Lord Daoist Jinyang finally noticed her. His excited expression faded a little, and he said with a bit of guilt, "Feishuang, it's okay to leave for a while." Jifei, you, Lord Daoist Jinyang hesitated and didn't finish his words. Even if Mo Tiange and Qin Shi weren't outsiders, it wasn't good to talk about the matter between husband and wife in public. Wu Feishuang said solemnly, "It's precisely because someone is forming his nascent soul that we should be more careful on duty, so Martial Nephew can't stay for long." She paused for a moment then said, "Martial Uncle, please pass on my congratulations to Martial Uncle Jifei for walking out of his inner demon and setting foot on the Great Tao." She called herself her Daoist name and called Bai Yanfei Martial Uncle Jifei, so her attitude was very obvious. Lord Daoist Jinyang was silent for a moment then sighed. "Forget it. If I keep meddling, I'll be disrespectful. You can go." Wu Feishuang cupped her hands at the 3 of them then rode her magic weapon and left. Mo Tiange shook her head and followed Lord Daoist Jinyang to land on Morning Sun Peak. Bai Yanfei's Immortal's cave was right next to Lord Daoist Jinyang's Immortal's cave. The spiritual aura was no less than that of Morning Sun Peak's Master's cave, which showed Lord Daoist Jinyang's preference for him. Mo Tiange couldn't help but wonder if it was because he was too partial to Bai Yanfei that Bai Yanfei took the wrong path. Bai Yanfei was different from them. She came from an ordinary family and had a rough childhood. Although Qin Shi was born in a prince's mansion, he was just a branch of the family and was far from being respected. As for Bai Yanfei, he was born the crown prince and became the head's favorite disciple after he entered the sect. He was too used to being spoiled, so he couldn't get up when he was frustrated. In fact, in terms of talent and comprehension, Bai Yanfei wasn't worse than them. Even if he couldn't compare to her spiritual roots of the origin, he was still several times better than Qin Shi. He also had generous conditions. A great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm was meticulously taught, and countless resources were at his disposal. Perhaps he had too much, so he forgot that some things had to be obtained through hard work. No matter how smart or rich a person was, he would only walk a little earlier and a little faster than others. If he always held his head high, he could see a higher goal, but he often couldn't see the road under his feet. In the long run, there would be a day when those people he never paid attention to would sooner or later appear in his line of sight and become existences he could look up to. At that time, he would realize how unsteady his steps were all the way. The feeling of falling from a high place wasn't good, but if he didn't fall, he wouldn't be able to climb back up. Mo Tiange stood behind Lord Daoist Jinyang and watched as the stone door of the cave opened. A person slowly walked out with a calm gaze and dignified demeanor. She faintly smiled. That arrogant and impetuous junior brother, after being silent for several decades, had finally stood up and firmly solidified the once illusory path. After seeing Bai Yanfei, Mo Tiange and Jinyang returned to the cave. They hadn't left for long, and the cave was in good condition. The two of them sent a message to their master and reprimanded their disciples. After a while, they sent a message to Gujin sect to ask whether Jing Xingji had returned. Before Gujin sect replied, Lord Daoist Jinyang came to visit with Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Miaoyi. Mo Tiange was a bit flattered to see how cautious they were. After greeting them, she said, Master, since you're back, you should have sent someone to inform us. How could you trouble Master to visit us in person? Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't put on airs as a master today. He waved his hand and said, Your master came back at the last minute. I still have to go to Kunzhong City after I'm done, so I don't have time to put on airs. Let's talk quickly. Mo Tiange was speechless for a moment. Qin Shi reacted quickly and directly led them into the cultivation room. There were no chairs in the cultivation room, so the five of them sat on the praying mats. Lord Daoist Jinyang asked first, I didn't ask about the day Zhifei formed his nascent soul. Shoujing and Qingwei, you came back so soon, and Lingxi didn't go with you. Is there something wrong? Qin Shi poured tea for each of the masters one by one, then answered, Rest assured, Senior Martial Brother Jinyang. Nothing unpleasant happened. Then you. Lord Daoist Jinyang still frowned. As the head and senior martial brother, he was also worried about Lord Daoist Lingxi, who hadn't returned yet. Miaoyi held the teacup, sniffed it gently, then put it down. She said with a smile, Senior martial brother, although Shoujing and Qingwei are injured, they look calm. Lingxi is obviously fine. Moreover, they don't look anxious or unhappy at all. It seems we found some answers on this trip. Mo Tiange looked at Lord Daoist Miaoyi with admiration and said, Senior martial sister Miaoyi is wise. We've indeed found the answer, but the answer. She hesitated a bit and heaved a long sigh. I hope you won't be too disappointed after you know it. Chapter 675. All of this was just a gamble, Mo Tiange said seriously. Under the solemn gazes of the three Lord Daoists, Mo Tiange slowly changed the whole story. First of all, she told the three Lord Daoists everything about this trip, from the battle between the sea beasts in the Shumi Sea and the returning ruined sea to being besieged by dozens of demonic cultivators, to escaping death, and finally to finding the Qilin sacrificial temple. When we arrived at the Qilin sacrificial temple, we found that it was completely different from the other four spirits. Not only was it well preserved, but it also had restrictions that prevented us from entering. When we were at our wits' end, laughter suddenly came from inside the sacrificial temple. Who was it? Lord Daoist Jinghe asked impatiently. Mo Tiange stared at the three Lord Daoists and said, It was a deification senior. Ah! Lord Daoist Miaoyi exclaimed softly, a deification senior was dispatched. Lord Daoist Jinyang looked calm. Since it's related to the world situation, how could a deification senior not know? We were negligent before. Lord Daoist Jinghe nodded. Yes. Deification seniors almost never enter the world, so we ignored their existence. He paused and asked, Has a deification senior taken over this matter? Yes. Mo Tiange sighed and continued, Our worries were discovered by a deification senior, and they've been doing what we're doing. She didn't hide the fact that the sacrificial temple was built in ancient times and was related to the gamble between the two deities. She just didn't answer the question about what happened later and blamed everything on the deification cultivator. Deification cultivators never entered the world, so the three Lord Daoists only knew they existed but had never seen one. In the tens of thousands of years since Xianqing School was established, some people were lucky enough to witness the appearance of deification cultivators and left some words. In these records, deification cultivators acted mysteriously and were powerful, so the three Lord Taoists didn't doubt them at all. My great ancestor made it clear that deification cultivators couldn't intervene in this matter, so we were sent back. After Tiange finished, the three Lord Taoists were lost in thought. After a long time, Lord Taoist Jinyang said, "Since there's a deification senior, it's not something we can intervene in. Let's forget about this matter." Lord Taoist Jinghe stroked his beautiful short beard and sighed. "It's a waste of effort." "I'm afraid it won't go to waste, right?" Lord Taoist Miaoi looked at them with a smile. "Since the two of you met a soul formation senior, did you get some kind of lucky chance?" Tiange shrugged and said rather regretfully, "Unfortunately, there aren't any." "You don't have anything?" Tao Lord Wondercraft was slightly surprised. "Entering a treasure trove and leaving empty-handed. That's not like you." Tiange and Qin Shi glanced at each other. Both of them were smiling bitterly in their hearts. When they found out the truth, they were so shocked that they didn't know what to do. How could they still remember to ask for benefits? The fact that they were able to calm down so quickly and decide to continue cultivating was already a testament to their firm willpower. Lingxi was left behind by that senior Han Quan and hasn't returned yet. Could it have encountered something? Lord Taoist Jinyang began to worry again. "Don't worry, senior brother Jinyang. With a divine transformation realm senior here, junior brother Lingxi will be fine." Besides, senior Han Quan said in advance that he'd give them a fated chance. Junior martial brother Lingxi's journey was probably delayed because of this. Lord Taoist Jinyang nodded. "I hope so." As he spoke, he looked at Qin Shi and asked with a smile, "Shoujing, it's been more than 100 years since you advanced to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. I've noticed that your cultivation level has improved recently, and there are signs of a breakthrough. When will you enter closed-door meditation to advance to the late stage?" Qin Shi looked at Tiange and said, "If there are no accidents, I'll enter closed-door meditation soon." "That's good. The sect is thriving now, and the situation in the celestial pole is also stable. You don't need to worry about trivial things." Lord Taoist Jinyang thought about it and became happy. "If you can advance to the late stage smoothly, you'll definitely shock the world. Advancing to the late stage in just over 300 years old is something that has never happened in the celestial pole's cultivation world." Lord Taoist Jinghe was both gratified and jealous. "That's right. With my talent, I only advanced to the nascent soul realm when I was 400 years old. Needless to say, the late stage of the nascent soul realm was 900 years old at that time." He couldn't help but recall when he took Qin Shi away from the prince's mansion. At that time, he only thought that since the descendant of the Qin clan had spiritual roots, he, as his granduncle, should help him a little. Later, seeing that Qin Shi's mind was pure and his comprehension was extremely high, he only thought he could pass on his mantle. Several hundred years passed, and Qin Shi's cultivation level was getting higher and higher, getting closer and closer to his own. Now, it was even possible for Qin Shi to surpass him. The late stage of the nascent soul realm wasn't easy to pass, but his intuition told him that this boy wouldn't be delayed for too long. After thinking about it carefully, Qin Shi's mental state was unhindered, his cultivation level was solid, and he also had top-notch resources, so how could he not pass this hurdle? Back then, he couldn't advance because he lacked fated chances, but after obtaining a few flowerless golden fruits, he was able to cross the threshold of the late stage in one fell swoop. Qin Shi smiled but looked at Tiange. "Senior martial brother Jinyang, it's too early to say that. I'm afraid it won't be long before the world really shakes." "Oh." Lord Taoist Jinyang looked at Tiange. "Is Qingwei going to advance again?" Tiange pursed her lips and smiled. "How can it be that fast?" It'll take at least several decades. Several decades isn't fast. Lord Daoist Miaoyi said angrily, are you trying to provoke Senior Marshal's sister? Speaking of which, Lord Daoist Miaoyi was also known as a genius. She formed her nascent soul before she was 300 years old, but she was still in the early stage of the nascent soul realm now, so the title of genius was somewhat undeserved. But she was still smiling, so it obviously didn't linger in her heart. Lord Daoist Jing has said, you're encumbered by your cultivation technique. If it weren't for the fact that your cultivation technique is incomplete and you've spent a lot of effort to fix it, how could it be delayed until now? Now that your cultivation technique is complete and your cultivation level is stable, it won't be long before you make a realm breakthrough. Lord Daoist Miaoyi nodded. Thank you for your kind words, Senior Marshal brother. I hope I can advance in one fell swoop during my next closed-door meditation. Mo Tiange thought of Lord Daoist Xianin, who was still in closed-door meditation, so she asked, what about Senior Marshal brother Xianin? Did you gain anything from your closed-door meditation this time? This boy is trying to advance to the middle stage, Lord Daoist Jinghe said with a smile. This time, his chances are very high. Lord Daoist Xianin had formed his nascent soul for more than 200 years. His cultivation progress was similar to Lord Daoist Jinghe's, he always made steady progress. However, he was a genius with a single spiritual root after all. Even if he didn't encounter any heaven-defying fated chances, he could still advance to the middle stage. Shoujing and Qingwei are likely to advance to the late stage. Junior Marshal brother Huayan is already in the middle stage. Miaoyi and Xianin are about to advance to the middle stage. Lingxi can't advance to the late stage, but he can advance to the middle stage. In addition, Zhifei has just formed his nascent soul. Lord Daoist Jinyang carefully counted and was very happy. Our Xianqing school is so prosperous that our ancestors must be very gratified. Mo Tiange's explanation was finally able to smooth things over. She didn't need to talk about how they were going to look forward to the future. Before long, Lord Daoist Lingxi returned safely. Although he looked gloomy, he was still calm. As soon as he returned to the mountain, he went to visit the Immortal's cave in the extreme abyss. After talking with the two of them, he agreed with their way of handling the situation and told them that Ling Yunhe and the others had returned safely. Hiding the truth was also their joint decision. Before Nia Wushang returned to Shaoyang, she also asked him to pass on a message, when you advance to the deification realm, we'll meet again and open the path to heaven. Mo Tiange didn't expect Nia Wushang would pass on such a heroic message, so she couldn't help but feel heroic. Alright, we'll meet again on the day we advance to the deification realm. After a round of encouragement, Lord Daoist Lingxi went back to cultivate. He was fated to meet the cold spring. This time, he obtained a huge fated chance, so presumably, he would also soar to the sky. A few days later, Jing Xingji came to visit. He still had a cheeky smile on his face and didn't look gloomy at all. His growth experience was more rough than many people's. If he didn't have a tough heart, he wouldn't be able to reach this step, so there was no need to worry about him. As soon as he sat down, he said, "Can you still resist?" Qin Shi was very calm. "The two of us can resist half of it." Jing Xingji was very gloomy when he was stopped after just one sentence. "I knew I didn't need to worry about you at all." Mo Tiange smiled. Seeing fellow Daoist Jing like this, we're also relieved. Jing Xingji's gloominess was slightly reduced. After thinking for a while, he smiled again. "Forget it, I won't argue with you." He cleared his throat and said, "I came to tell you that we've decided to advance to the deification realm." "What about you?" Mo Tiange nodded lightly. "Of course, we won't give up on the path to heaven." Jing Xingji smiled, his face blooming like a peach blossom. After a while, He stopped smiling and said seriously, Qin Shoujing, I lost to you in the nascent soul formation realm, but not in the deification realm. Let's just wait and see. Qin Shi smiled. Okay. In a few days, I'll enter closed-door meditation to advance to the late stage. Jing Xingji was stunned and shouted, What? You're going to advance to the late stage so soon, but I'm still far away. Isn't this? Jing Xingji soon said goodbye, saying he had to go back to closed-door meditation. He absolutely couldn't lose to Qin Shi too much. Soon afterward, Qin Shi and Imo Tiange entered closed-door meditation together to practice the yin and yang dual cultivation technique. This technique, which combined the art of Sunu, Taiyuan record, pure yang technique, and the art of 3 primordial cycles into one, made incredible progress. In less than 10 years, the two of them came out of closed-door meditation. Qin Shi had successfully advanced to the late stage and became a great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. As for Mo Tiange, she benefited even more from it. The day she advanced to the late stage was just around the corner. When Jing Xingji heard this news, he beat his chest and stamped his feet. He then wholeheartedly entered closed-door meditation and never stepped out of Gujin sect. Lingyan also received news that Master Daoist Iron Mask passed away and Master Daoist Yuan Mu was injured, so he had no choice but to take over the position of first seat, becoming the first middle stage nascent soul first seat in the history of Jiuyan sect. Speaking of first seat, when Qin Shi advanced to the late stage, Lord Daoist Jinyang intended to pass the position to him, but he refused. Others thought he didn't want to take the position because his master was still alive. Only Mo Tiange knew he wholeheartedly wanted to advance to the deification realm, so he didn't want to waste time and occupy the position of first seat. 100 years passed quickly. Kuang Zhu advanced to the nascent soul realm, and the number of nascent soul cultivators in Xianqing School reached double digits. Under Xianqing School's strong support, the demonic beast riot gradually subsided. All the demonic cultivators retreated to the southern forest. The demonic cultivators on the westbound continent were forced to retreat to the west because of the strength of the ghost cultivators. As for the devil path cultivators, they moved to Yunzhong one after another, taking advantage of the chaos in Yunzhong to occupy the territory in the west and continue to recuperate. After 100 years of war, Yunzhong slowly calmed down. Many sects lost their inheritance in the war, and the power of the cultivation forces was reshuffled. Jiuyan sect, on the other hand, stood firm. Although its power declined greatly, it firmly occupied the position of the number 1 sect in Yunzhong. As for Shaoyang, Nia Wushang once sent a letter saying that all the forces in Shaoyang had been subdued by her. Although it was still a barren land, it had a chance of survival. Only Yang Qingji's whereabouts were uncertain. She only occasionally heard that he passed by, Fairy Feng Ning, the Grand Supreme Elder of Biyun sect, congratulates. Sect head Mu Jinglu of Lingshou sect congratulates. Master Daoist Sunglo of Tiandao sect congratulates. Lord Daoist Mingxia of Jingfa sect congratulates. Venerable Swordsman Xiao He of Gujin sect congratulates. The main peak of Mount Taikong was decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was even grander than the nascent soul ceremony. The disciples coming and going were full of joy, and the guests who came to congratulate had high cultivation levels. However, among these guests, only a few familiar names could be heard, such as Feng Ning of Biyun sect and Venerable Swordsman Xiao He of Gujin sect. A man stood in front of the statue of the founder of 3 Pure Hall on the main peak. He looked like a young man in his 20s. He was tall and had an ordinary appearance. His not-so-handsome brows carried a bit of fierceness and depth, and his gorgeous feather crown and crane cloak made him look very powerful. Fellow Daoist Mo, congratulations on taking over the position of first seat. When Lord Daoist Mingxia of Jingfa sect saw this person, he immediately cupped his hands with a smile. All cultivators of Xianqing school were called by their Daoist names after they advanced to the core formation realm. This young man was obviously in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but Master Daoist Mingxia called him fellow Daoist Imo. It was clear that the two of them had a deep friendship and must have known each other well. The young man smiled faintly and returned the greeting. He then cupped his hands towards venerable swordsman Xiao He and the others who followed closely behind him. Fellow Daoists, it's my honor to have you all here. Please wait for a moment, fellow Daoists. The first seat succession ceremony is about to begin. All the cultivators expressed that they didn't need to worry about it. Under the guidance of a Daoist child, they went to the side to wait. Right at that moment, with a sudden clap of thunder, the wind and clouds surged, and countless spiritual lights appeared on the 7 peaks of Mount Taikang. What's going on? The guests who hadn't sat down looked outside one after another. They were either in the core formation realm or the nascent soul realm, so how could they not see that this was a celestial phenomenon caused by a cultivator's realm advancement? Venerable swordsman Xiao He looked up and muttered to himself, if it's not the core formation realm, could it be that someone is forming their nascent soul? Thunderclaps, wind and clouds, and spiritual lights indeed look like the celestial phenomenon of forming one's nascent soul. However, a faint, sweet-sounding sound rang out in the air, sounding like celestial music. Bowl-sized flowers sprinkled down from the sky like the legendary celestial maiden scattering flowers. Whose celestial phenomenon of forming one's nascent soul is so strange? Lord Daoist Wuzhen, who was about to take over the position of first seat, frowned. He followed the flow of spiritual aura and looked towards Clear Spring Peak. Suddenly, he was pleasantly surprised. Could it be? He didn't have time to entertain the guests and immediately turned into a flight light, rushing towards Clear Spring Peak. One flight light after another stopped at Clear Spring Peak. At that moment, the nascent soul Lord Daoists of Xianqing School were all gathered in Deep Abyss Valley. Before long, the stone door of the cave opened, and Sang Yushu, who was already a nascent soul cultivator, walked out. He looked around and cupped his hands at his fellow disciples. Senior and junior martial brothers, please don't be alarmed. This phenomenon is a sign that Master and Master's wife have successfully formed their deification realm. Ah! The nascent soul cultivators were stunned by this news. Lord Daoist Shoujing and Lord Daoist Qingwei were the most outstanding geniuses in Xianqing School's history. This was something all Xianqing School disciples knew, and these nascent soul cultivators also knew that 400 years ago, the two Lord Daoists no longer appeared in front of people because they wanted to form their deification realm. However, in the celestial pole, there had been no news of cultivators forming their deification realm in the past 10,000 years, and the two Lord Daoists were too young, so they all thought even if they could form their deification realm, it would be a very, very long time later. They never thought that the two Lord Daoists would achieve their goal in less than 1,000 years. Deification Realm. A deification realm cultivator appeared in Xianqing School. This news instantly spread throughout Mount Taikang, and soon, it would also spread throughout the celestial pole. In Shangqing Palace, the two most senior Lord Daoists in Xianqing School sat opposite each other on opposite sides of the chessboard. One of them was 1,800 years old, and the other 1,600 years old. Both of them were already old. If they hadn't taken longevity pills that could increase their lifespan by 500 years, they would have passed away already. Right now, their backs were still straight, and their temperaments were still sage-like. Only the tiredness between their brows vaguely revealed their age. Deification Realm. These two little guys finally formed their deification realm. Lord Daoist Jinghe smiled and placed a chess piece. Yes, a deification realm cultivator finally appeared in Xianqing School. Lord Daoish Jinyang was very calm. He didn't feel anxious at all because his juniors had already formed their deification realm while he was still stuck in the nascent soul realm. Shouldn't the two of us also work hard? Lord Daoish Jingha said, we don't have much longer to live. Haven't we been working hard? Lord Daoish Jinyang stroked his beard with a smile. It's just that those two people walked faster than us. Lord Daoish Jingha nodded lightly with a smile on his face. They've been in closed-door meditation on Demonic Mountain for 200 years and finally found the key to forming their deification realm from the immortal aura in Immortal's ruins. Now that you've handed over the position of head to them, do you want us to also give it a try? Lord Daoish Jinyang glanced at him with a smile and scolded him with a smile. They went together because they're doing dual cultivation. What's the point of us two old guys going together? I don't have any special hobbies. Go. Lord Daoish Jingha rolled his eyes. I like to look at beautiful women, I'm not interested in looking at an old man like you. Several days later, Gujin sect's venerable swordsman Jing Xingji, Yunzhong Juyan sect's head Grand Supreme Elder Ling Yunhe, Lord of Shaoyang sect Nia Wushang, and Yang Qingji, who wandered the world without a fixed place, all received a message. We've formed our deification realm. When will we meet again? End of book. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.